All right, I think we are live. So welcome everyone to our Maran Motoring live stream here on the Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend here and good May so far. And thanks so much for stopping by. So like all the other usual Sunday night live streams here, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. We have party answering, then who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get that party answering. If you'd also like that, there's a link in the description. And I see we have Danny and Jerry and Wheatman and Kevin. I think Wheatman and Jerry are the same, unless they like the same exact avatar there. But Kevin, B. Mitchell, and Vishal. And so, yeah, I see Danny starting us off here. He says, Stormy had another near miss at about 6:15 last night with a red 2007 Honda Fit Sports. We were driving near a shopping center where ShopRite is by my grandma's when the Fit driver decides, let's think our mirrors are suggestions and just put on our signal and force our way over. I saw him coming over and I laid on the horn for a good 5 seconds to get his attention. Then he moved back over and he merged behind me. When I looked in my rearview mirror, he flipped me off. I feel like you are the champ at getting people flipping you off so far with your few months of driver's license experience here. He says he was an older guy, maybe in his 60s. Like, how are you going to be bitter towards an 18-year-old? Control your anger. My gosh. As soon as I saw him flip me off, I said, oh, F you too. Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people, especially around you, I feel like they're pretty assertive, New York drivers. They just, kind of force their way in and assume people will make way. I mean, a lot of places you have to be assertive because if you don't force your way in, people will never let you in. So it just comes down to, the driving culture of where you're at. But some places that is absolutely normal. Other places it's maybe considered rude, but yeah, it's one of those things. Sometimes it's not worth the fight. There was like a guy even today, just leaving a shopping center. I stopped at a stop sign. It was my turn to go. And not only did like one person go, but then like another dude from like way off in the distance just decided to roll through all the stop signs and just barrel through the intersection. So it's like, and then on the way home even further, I don't see this very often, but like I was at a stop sign. There was a car in front of me, and the car in front of me was like getting ready to start turning. There was one person that was turning across them to the left. They took their turn, totally normal. And then, the car in front of me was supposed to go. But instead, the car right behind the one that had just turned just went right through too. Like, we're going to pile on and just like not have any regard for any kind of driving laws. Stuff like that. Like it, obviously for enthusiasts, it is, very important to still retain the right to drive and to enjoy that. But for the people that are horrible at it, I cannot wait for the autonomous cars because it's going to be really, really nice because anyone who's actually caring about driving and engaged in driving and, knows how to do it well or cares about doing it well, they are going to be the only ones left driving eventually. And that means clear left lanes, no more left lane hogs, no more bad drivers. You'll just have the automated drivers, which might be slower and you might get annoyed at, how they come to a full stop at a stop sign or whatever. But like, at least you don't have to like be always mad at like just poor driving. And so I'm actually welcoming our autonomous overlords here. In the next decade or two, because I think it actually will be a benefit for those of us who still want to drive, assuming everything else, stays normal and we don't have sky high insurance rates for human drivers and stuff like that. But assuming everything else holds steady, I'm welcoming the people getting out of the driver's seat as fast as possible if they're bad or uninterested in doing that job. But anyway, so Jerry says good evening and welcome to a new month and may the 4th be with you all. I agree. Hope you guys have a great 4th tomorrow. And let me see. B. Mitchell says the Buick Club up here holds a large show and swap meet on the first Sunday in May. So I went there today. Large turnout of cars, vendors, and walk-ins, and I picked up a nice group of Ford Model T and Ford tractor literature. Nice. Perfect weather too. Fordson tractors were the first commercial products made at the River Rogue plant. Interesting. Swapping with the Highland Park during the Model T to Model A change in 27. Nice. That's cool. That sounds like, yeah, it was a beautiful day. So I'm hoping it was for the rest of the country too. But that's sounds like, yeah, good day for a car show. Glad you had some fun there. I'm curious what you brought because I don't think I remember you having a Buick, right, P. Mitchell? So maybe you just maybe I'm assuming it's for everyone, but that's cool. And B Mitchell, is while you're here, I also hope you enjoyed the Lobo review. He's considering getting a Lobo, and I was happy to be able to review that one last week. So I hope you enjoyed that one. And Danny says his rare spot was a 1988 Isuzu iMark RS Turbo and Spectra Red. That's impressive. You even remember the color. I was on Google too much. Rare car I saw while in California was a mint C4 and a 90s Infinity i30, also in clean condition. Very nice. That's cool. I mean, that Isuzu, though, there can't be more than a couple dozen of those still remaining, if that. I don't know. That's an impressive spot. Hopefully you weren't driving near the Newark airport today, Danny, with that plane. If you guys heard, there's another jet that clipped not only a light pole, but also I think it was like a large like mail truck. Like actually like, I mean, how many people can say that their truck got hit by a plane and lived to tell the tale? That's just wild stuff. So yeah, every single day there's like another new reason why I'm happy that I'm not flying as much this year. A bunch of people, got stranded on Spirit here, unfortunately. This weekend, just all kinds of chaos there. So anyway, and Danny says the C4 was in this weird turquoise blue. I mean, that's a very 80s 90s kind of color there. So totally can see that being a C4 color. And Michelle says my spots are 2 Excursions mid to late 90s Mercury Cougar XR7, nice, Pontiac Grand Prix 2-door, and a new AMG GT 2-door with a GT 4-door falling behind. That's cool. Nice spots, especially that Cougar. That's cool. And Danny says he also forgot about another rare spot when he got home was a 1990 Ford Escort LX wagon in a baby blue. That's cool. Yeah, that's actually my dad had an 84 Escort in a baby blue color, and he loved that thing. And actually, Beth spotted an Escort. It was, I think, it wasn't quite as new as 90. I think it was probably a late 80s Escort. And it was impressive that it was still running. It actually wasn't in terrible shape either. It wasn't like it was, pristine or well kept necessarily, but it was impressive that it only looked like it was maybe 10 years old or, something like that instead of older. So that was a cool one. And let me see. He says he had the 5-speed manual, and that Stormy is close to rolling over 80,000 miles now. That's awesome. And Nicholas, thanks for stopping by, and Luke too. Luke says he's chilling with his parents. I talked to my cousins today at a surprise party. We crapped on the Prelude for like 10 minutes. Did you enjoy some of those pics I sent you? Yeah, that was awesome. Some very cool spots you saw there. And yeah, I don't know. I haven't been on Facebook in the past like day or so. So if you sent me more, I didn't see them yet, so I'll have to check them out for sure. But yeah, absolutely. And Howie says, hi, Matt. Did you see Volkswagen is having an unveiling on 5.5? Could it be a 5-cylinder Golf R? I don't know. So I actually hadn't heard about something on 5.5. So I'm just like kind of processing that in real time here. It's a Volkswagen review. It's not like Volkswagen Group, like it's nothing from Audi or anything, I'm assuming. So if it's a Volkswagen, I don't know. I mean, it could be a 5-cylinder tie-in for sure. They did just reveal the Polo, but I don't believe like the new Polo EV or whatever. I don't think they revealed the GTI version. So there's a chance that maybe that could be Polo GTI. Otherwise, I don't know. I would love to eat a giant helping of crow if I turn out to be wrong, but I don't really have money to gamble, but if I had the money to burn, I would bet pretty good money that a 5-cylinder Golf R is not happening. I've went over all the reasons multiple times now, but there's just no room for it pricing wise. That motor is basically at the end of its production. And it's just, there's no, I mean, they're trying to keep it alive in the RS3, but there's like, if they're struggling to even keep it alive in their own car, the last thing they're going to be doing is saying, hey, let's like, shove it into to a Golf R. And if they do, it's going to be a limited run thing because again, that engine is ending production in Europe this year. It's going to possibly continue production for like the US, the Middle East, and a few other places until like early to mid next year, and then it's done unless they can, in the 11th hour here, find a way to do the plug-in hybrid combo with that motor, kind of like how you see with the RS5 with the V6 in that. So I think that's kind of what they're thinking, because they understand that this motor is very important and they do want to keep it around, they've said in the past weeks here, but that they can't do it with the current emissions environment in Europe. There's really no room for it. And if it is, again, it's going to be a super limited thing, probably only for Europe. And even then, it's just going to be so expensive with markups and, the collectability and everything else that, like, again, all these roads, no matter which, I mean, maybe there's just scenarios I'm not thinking of, but all viable roads to a 5-cylinder Golf R lead me to being like, we'll just get an RS3. Again, I know you can get the hatch with the Golf R, and that's, I guess part of the appeal, here in the US, because, there is, of course, the RS3 hatch in Europe, but like every single angle, it's like, okay, well, you might as well get an RS3 because they're going to be close in price, or it'll actually probably be cheaper for an RS3 because it's not limited run compared to this Golf R, if it hypothetically does happen. And so like every other avenue for that, it's like, well, the Golf R is going to have a worse interior. It's, not going to be as prestigious. I don't think it's going to happen. So no, I'll be very curious. We'll see in 2 days, what ends up happening, but I don't think it's a 5-cylinder thing. I mean, the date is an interesting thing for them to do a launch on 5.5 that, would suggest something 5-cylinder potentially, or something, A5, S5, RS5 related, if it was an Audi, Volkswagen Group product. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know what that could be. It could just be some normal, reveal of something as well. I'm not sure, but I didn't know about that, so I'll have to do a little more digging. Thanks for bringing that to my attention, Howie. And Confirmation says hello, and he says he drove from home in Pacific Northwest to Texas, and I spotted a Nissan Skyline R34 in Denver. Very nice. That might be the spot of the week there. That's impressive. Very cool. And Nicholas says he saw an old RAV4 EV. Pretty cool. Also seeing a black Prelude most days on my commute. That's cool. You see a Prelude. And RAV4 EV, yeah, there weren't many of those, so that's pretty cool. The Prelude, though, I'm impressed. So I just was looking at last month's sales data here that Honda revealed on the 1st. And they're up over, I think Prelude is up to like 1,100 sales for the year, or 1,200 or so. So they're already well short of their goal of like 4,000 units a year. But, they are ramping up with the supply of them. So, honestly, I'm kind of surprised they've already sold over 1,000 of them. I think that the timing is fortunate for that, because you probably are getting a few people that are maybe, like Mustang EcoBoost drivers that, maybe you're going into like a Prelude if they're comfortable spending 40 grand for something that's, not super fast. I mean, EcoBoost, that was way faster than Prelude, but if someone who's not all about performance, and you see, $5 gas prices, I think right now Prelude kind of has the wind in its sails a little bit, and it's certainly being helped by that. But I'm just kind of surprised. Maybe Honda dealers are dropping the markups quicker, because I'm assuming all the ones transacting right now are probably transacting over MSRP still, because that's just the way Honda dealers are. Maybe they're not, and maybe if Honda dealers are being smarter with this one, and that's helping to sell them, I'm not sure. But Prelude is actually not doing great, but when you consider, how many GR86s they sell and BRZs, I think it's actually outselling BRZ currently. Again, I don't think that will last. These are certainly early adopters right now that are buying, in the first few months here, but not bad. It may end up proving me wrong. We'll see what happens as far as sales goes. And let me see. Confirmation says, how do you pronounce Monongahela and Yo? So that one does trip me up. So yeah, Monongahela is how I say that one. These are Pittsburgh related rivers for anyone who's thinking we're talking in Greek here. The Yakagani is how you say that other one there. At least that's the way I say it. But I do have a fairly decent Pittsburgh accent. I'm not quite as much. They call them yinzers around here because yins instead of you guys or y'all. In Pittsburgh, we say yins. Most Pittsburghers don't actually say that anymore. But if you're very Pittsburgh entrenched, I guess you you say yins. But like I say, like iron for like iron. Yeah, I can't like iron. I guess is how other people say that word. But like that's one that stuck with me, and there's a few others that pop up every once in a while. But anyway, thanks for the fun little test there, confirmation. And Michelle says, was watching Kirk's video on Honda sales. Even he was ranting similarly to how you do about the obvious things they refuse to do for some reason. He did say they should have a Maverick competitor. Yeah, that's a Maverick competitor would be good, and I think that would be very easy for Honda to do. So I can agree with him on that. I think, Ridgeline though, it's not quite a Maverick competitor, but it's closer to a Maverick competitor. Outside of Santa Cruz, it's kind of the closest as far as just being a unibody pickup truck. And I don't know what average like real transaction prices are for Ridgeline. I'm assuming there's pretty healthy discounts at this point. And with Maverick getting more and more expensive, it might not be a crazy difference in price between those two. And Ridgeline is a far nicer truck, more room, more space, just more of everything, honestly. And you get the V6, which, right now, again, might hurt it for people seeking out hybrids. But, I don't know. I think Ridgeline is already kind of positioned pretty well, and Ridgeline still isn't selling very well. It's actually doing horribly right now. That's partially also because it's ancient at this point. It's the oldest thing. That and Odyssey are the oldest things that they sell right now. I mean, it's just been completely abandoned, it seems. Passport got this great redo, and I think that if you gave all the Passport stuff to Ridgeline, I think Ridgeline would be doing phenomenally well. But again, it's Honda being slow as molasses. And they even, they told us at the beginning of this year their plans, for all the Honda stuff this year, and Ridgeline was nowhere to be seen as far as any planned updates. I would have assumed, okay, Pilot comes first, and then you have Passport, but it was all backwards. Passport came first, then the Pilot redo, and then, now we're seeing, I'm hoping some kind of Ridgeline like a year after this. So like it's like been 2 years since Passport before we finally get a Ridgeline, or they might just give up on Ridgeline completely. I don't know. But yeah, it's a shame because Ridgeline I think is actually very underappreciated still. Let me see. Yeah, but I see Michelle says it's basically a fever dream. Yeah, but you're right. It is another one of those things that they could easily, hack the back end off of an HRV or something like that, and phone it in, and I think it would have potential. But Luke says, my dad laughed at the phrase low hanging fruit for Hondas with their hybrids. Yeah, it is so accurate. And where was, I was talking to someone else about this recently too, but like, yeah, just so many of these easy things just drives me crazy. I'm glad your dad got a laugh out of that. And B. Mitchell clarified that the Buick Club is open to all marks. That's good. And Luke says, my dad missed a flight due to having to wait for a wheelchair, and it took 2 days to get another flight from Florida to Pennsylvania. Wow, that's crazy. I'm curious if that was another Spirit flight or if it's just all the other flights that get booked up as a result of the mass exodus from Spirit there. But no, that's unfortunate. Man, 2 days to get another flight. I hope they took care of him or gave him some hotel credits or something to because you can't just leave people stranded like that. That's just crazy. I had assumed like rental cars would have been like nuts because I know a lot of people got stuck in Florida. Like if it were me, obviously, I mean, I guess, I have, the Delta status and stuff since I fly so much, but like if I didn't have any status or any kind of loyalties, and I knew that none of these airlines were really going to help me. I mean, they were saying they're going to like, have discounted flights and stuff, but like I would have ran straight to the rental car counter and been like, I'm driving myself back. And I'm guessing that's probably wasn't an option for your dad there. But like for, anyone else who's able-bodied, able to drive, like that would have been my move. It's been like, all right, I'm doing a road trip. Because with flights, I mean, even if you can get booked on another one, you're still just waiting around forever and you're stuck and you're sleeping in airports. It's just like, I'd rather just, be making some kind of progress in a car, stop at a hotel if I need to halfway or whatever. But like, yeah, that's kind of one of the things I've always liked about any of these times when I'm flying, whenever it's like bad weather or something. I'm like, I love flying on like at least like the eastern half of the US, because that way it won't take multiple days to get home. If I do ever need to just like hop in a car and just, give up on the flights there. Thankfully I've never had to do that. But yeah, it's a shame though that Spirit, just another victim of these high prices. You can't be there's no such thing. There's no room for a budget airline if, jet fuel doubles in price or whatever. It's just, I mean, everyone then gets more expensive, but like, I guess budget is then relative, much like, the car landscape. But like, if it gets expensive, then you might as well just go for, one of the other carriers there. So yeah, it's a shame. And B. Mitchell said, Lobo thing got weird again on Thursday. The dealer that has it called me up and reiterated my line in the sand trade-in. When I told them my old dealer offered $3,000 more, they told me to sell it to them then. I don't know why these dealers struggle so bad. I mean, if you like that black one, B. Mitchell, you can come to Pittsburgh here. They'll take good care of you at Schultz Ford that I've been working with here. I don't know about, the trade, obviously, but yeah, if you want a good dealer, I could at least put a good word in for you there. But I know you were looking for a blue one, so stick to what you want. But that black one was nice though. It looks cool in black. And George says, love the review of the Bronco Sport. Recently got one as my first car. Well, congrats on getting a Bronco Sport. It's a really nice first car. So congrats on that achievement and accomplishment. And hope you enjoy the Bronco Sport. They're great cars and really well equipped, even that base one. So I'm glad the video was helpful for you there and you enjoyed it, and hope the Bronco Sport does great for you. So happy motoring down the road there. And Mr. 705 says, I got some good news this week. My RAV4 should be here in 2 weeks. The only downside was the dealer tried to rework my trade-in, lowering the price by $2,000. I was not too happy about that. Walked out, and they called me back 3 days later and adjusted the price by only $400. Walking out worked. I hate dealerships. That sucks, man. This is why I apologize for all the repeat rants, but like, can we please get rid of dealers, please? Like, I mean, it only took us 22 minutes into the live here tonight to get 2 horror stories from crappy dealers. It's just, I don't know. I think dealers they can provide a good service, and I think that they can be good, if you are an upstanding salesman that actually helps inform people and help guide people to the right car and is, not sleazy. But like, everyone is sleazy and they think, okay, well, I have some leverage. I need to use that leverage. I need to exploit that person. And like, just because you have leverage or you have the ability, yes, I know free market, which in these days means I have an unlimited excuse to be crappy. And it's like, no, like, you can still, make good money and, recognize, yes, this is a free market. I'm not giving you $10,000 off or anything. And like, I understand there's demand here. So like, you can charge a fair price, but like, trying to pull the rug out on people for that is just, yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm impressed that you stuck with it, even the 400 off. I know you really want the car, and I completely, understand you do what's best for you. But like, the second they played that game with me, I would have just blocked their number. Like, I don't care if you come back and tell me it's $5,000 off, double middle fingers to you, never working with you again. Like, that's the way that I feel like about that kind of stuff. And I mean, I had like, my blood boiled whenever my, buddy, he has a YouTube channel he doesn't really post on too much anymore. Pittsburgh Views. He's the guy who was the mechanic that changed the oil in the bullet for me and everything. He was a Ford tech at a different Ford dealer. Actually, I'll name and shame because screw them. It was Moon Ford in Moon Township, PA here. They he had ordered a Bronco. This was back when Broncos were brand new, super hot. And I can't even remember. I think because he worked there at the dealer, I got the details. They're a little foggy. So, but the gist was he was, a mechanic there for, I don't know, he had worked there at least 10 years or more as a great mechanic for them. And he's like, look, I really want a Bronco. I'm going to place an order. Can you guys help me out? I know they're in demand, but he's like, I'll pay MSRP, and they're like, yeah, sure. So MSRP Bronco, which back then again was an achievement, great deal. And I don't blame any dealer for charging MSRP. No one should be entitled to a discount, especially on a hot vehicle. The price is the price. That's fine. The markups are what drive me crazy. But so he gets to the point of getting the car built, the Bronco built, getting it shipped, and then they call him and say, your Bronco is here, it's ready to be delivered, but we're gonna need a 10 grand markup. And as he's standing in front of the car, all excited, he brought his whole family with him, and then they pull that crap on their own employee at this dealer. And I think I did an Instagram post publicly shaming them back in 2021 or whatever it was, even for that crap. Or maybe I reposted his video and was like, this is ridiculous, because he definitely did a video about it. And they ended up coming down to, I think it was a 5 grand markup. And he took it because he just really wanted the thing, and he thought he'd make good money on doing content on one of the first Broncos and stuff. So he just took it on the chin there. But and he still worked for them for years after that. Now he doesn't work for him anymore, but and he's still friends with some of the people there. Obviously there's other people there that aren't involved with the sales side, but I was royally pissed off for him, and I had no skin in the game, and it's just seeing that crap, yeah, oh man, it's still raising my blood pressure to this day, that stuff. Ooh, I will, anyone, if you have crappy dealers, I feel I need to do a website that's just a blacklist of every crappy dealer. Send them into me, and I'll do a website of here are all the dealers that have pulled this crap on other people, and they will pull it on you. Just forget these dealers exist. And there's a lot of them, and that's the thing. And this is why the manufacturers will never admit it, because they have to suck up to dealers because they hold a lot of the cards. But if manufacturers were honest, they would drop the dealers in an instant. And this is why they're trying to work around it with the various offshoot brands, and Ford Blue, and all these different things to try and wiggle their way out of these dealer arrangements. But I think that dealers are doing it to themselves, even without the manufacturers trying to wiggle out of it. People are just tired of dealership experiences. I think that's why Carvana, even though it stumbled for a while, I think it's really starting to see some better momentum again, and knockoffs of Carvana. I think people they don't want to deal with it. And I was just talking some neighbors of mine today that are also looking to get a new car soon. And they also, I don't want to deal with dealers. I don't want to deal with, selling the car, trading their car in and everything. It's just they hate it. I'm just try Carvana, see what kind of quote you get, because I completely get it. It's just an absolute pain. And it's also from someone who's an enthusiast and someone who, I see the manufacturer side, and I see how, these the manufacturers really do try and put out something at the best price possible, try and put their best foot forward. And then dealers just completely take a dump all over it half the time. And it just, I would go nuts if I was in charge of pricing some of these vehicles. And I'm all right, we're going to get, Civic Type R at a really good price point. We're going to be, 46 grand or whatever. It's going to be really compelling. And then all these dealers just get greedy and just ruin the price and then tank the car's popularity. GR Corolla was another one. 40 grand, awesome deal at 40 grand. Then everyone was putting markups on them for a while. And it just killed a lot of the momentum. And working so hard on a car like that, and agonizing over the pricing, and working hard to get it down to cheap pricing. It takes hard work behind the scenes to get these things to a price point, and you hit that goal or get as close to that goal as possible. And it's just so much work. And then again, all it takes is one greedy dealer just completely disregard that MSRP, and it just, oh yeah, sorry. I'll cut it off there. But oh man, yeah, I think there's very few things in life, at least outside of politics, that get me that riled up as dealer markups. Oh man. All right. So I see Juan. Thank you so much for a super chat. First super chat of the night. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to get a drink here and calm myself down for a second. I'll check your super chat here. So, he says, Savage Geese once said during the pandemic, they flew to another state to buy a Genesis, but the dealership wouldn't sell them a car if they didn't finance in-house. The sale fell apart. I detest dealerships. Wow, that's crazy. I never heard that from them, but that's a big risk of traveling because a lot of my deals have been out of state, and it's a scary thing because then, yeah, you are giving them a lot of power because you can walk, but then you're out a bunch of money and time, and yeah, that's a big risk. But I still do believe traveling, is to get a good deal is often the best way to go about it, or to get the right color, or to get the right trim, or whatever. Now I would say, so I don't know, the details of the Savage Geese thing, but I will say from my personal experience with all of my out-of-state deals, everything is in writing before I ever set foot out the door of my own house. So, all of these, even like, they could have pulled that crap on us with the Mach-E whenever we, got the Mach-E back in 2022, because back then they were transacting for 5 to 10 grand over, and we got ours for MSRP. But like I had everything basically done. I only had to do, I think because of the state of Ohio, I had to like physically sign on paper like 2 places. But I essentially had everything pre-signed, I had everything, preset, including the financing, all the back end stuff. I told them already online, like, no, I don't want any, warranties and all that bull crap. Like, I'm just, I got it all set. So that's ideally the way to do an out-of-state deal, is make sure every possible thing you can do is already done. And that also makes it easier so that you don't have to be, standing around the dealership having to make small talk with a bunch of idiots. You can just walk in, get the keys. They give you their 5-minute spiel about the car they don't understand because they don't ever bother to learn the stuff themselves. And you already know more about the car than they do most of the time. And then, you're on your merry way, and, nothing gets changed last minute, because if everything's already in writing and signed, or at very least in writing, if you have it in writing and you have the documentation, like, we agreed to this. I mean, technically they don't have to honor that, but like, it's different versus a verbal thing, or, something like that. But, and the good thing too with an out-of-state dealer is you can, or any dealer, do your research ahead of time. Usually there will be some red flags on, Google reviews or on Yelp or something like that. Now, no dealer's perfect, so you're going to get some of that everywhere, but like, usually you can get a decent feel for a dealer too, based on that stuff still. And it's also great to just Google and like search on forums, because some forums, especially for enthusiast vehicles, do have like blacklists. And I know even like the Mach-E forums back when we were getting ours, like there was a bunch of dealers that were like, do not deal with these dealers. These are the ones that do markups. These are the ones that are crappy. And that kind of gives you a head start of like, okay, I know definitely not to go to these ones. And, you carry on from there. So yeah, it's miserable. And this is why, I think Tesla does so well. Not only is it the cars, which I think are still very competitive, but like, just it's a huge perk to have it just roll up in your driveway, or go to a showroom or whatever, where you don't really have salesmen, and you already have, again, everything signed online in advance. I think that's still, I think that doesn't get enough appreciation, or that doesn't get enough credit, as far as like people are like, oh, well, the car, it's because the car is good, or because people love Elon or whatever. But like, I think a lot of it's also like, oh, like I'm on Tesla's site, and now all I got to do is like put $200 on a credit card or something, and I can like have this car ordered and do it all online, and it shows up here in a week or 2 or whatever. Like, I think that's a very good conversion rate. I don't know the data, but like the fact that Tesla's site can do that, and no one else, I mean, I think Rivian and Lucid and a couple of the others, again, that are able to be fully independent and not have dealers, like offer a similar thing. I don't know how good it is, because I've never experienced those before, and done a transaction, but like, I have to imagine that Tesla's still probably the leader there in that. And I think that is a lot of what helps sell their cars still. And again, I feel like no one really talks about that anymore, because it's kind of a given, and it's just kind of everyone's used to that from Tesla. But I think that's still one massive advantage that they have over everyone else, where you got to go and deal with all the idiots there. But anyway, thank you so much, Juan, for the super chat and for letting me know about that. I'll have to bring that up next time I I talked to Savage Geese because that's I hadn't heard that story from them. And Vishal, thanks so much for being a member for 2 years now. I really appreciate that. He says dealer BS is why Delivered has been blowing up. They're doing around 300 deals a month now because people don't want to deal with their BS. Yeah, so I've done more research on the Delivered and that whole service. It is good because yes, like you don't have to deal with a dealer, and for some people, that is good enough. The Delivered stuff, though, and again, I've never met the main guy who runs it and stuff, and I know that again he's very popular online, but there's some interesting claims that they've made. They claim you get a good deal, but it seems like you will get it all comes down to the person. Some people are better negotiators than others. If you are a completely worthless negotiator, Delivered can probably do better for you. But I looked because there's a whole discussion about this on Lease Hacker because they're not a fan of him on Lease Hacker. But they actually analyzed a bunch of the deals that Delivered has bragged about getting for people, and they're not good deals. I mean, they're not horrible deals. And again, it's better than you walking in, being completely naive and not knowing how to negotiate. And if, you're 18 and you've never negotiated a car sale before or something, yeah, they're going to probably, save you some money, but it's $1,000 for that service. You should be getting a huge discount on a car. And some of these cars, they're like, oh, you pay us $1,000 and we got you a RAV4 for MSRP. Congrats. Here you go. And that's, again, for some places that is an achievement, but you can get that on your own. And so I don't know, even, yes, I know you still got to deal with a dealer and stuff, but I think people can do it on their own if they just do a little bit of research. Again, you don't have to be an expert, but if you just Google what's a good Toyota dealer in my area, you do searches just like, when you research restaurants, if you do that or anything, people are capable of research if they just bother to. And for some people, maybe paying $1,000 and not having to Google for 5 minutes is worth it, I suppose. But but Delivered claims they'll give you really good deals. And it seems like they have the way they're able to do 300 deals a month is they have go-to dealerships that know the deal, give them a good enough price that everyone's happy, but there's still meat on the bone there. I mean, you could say there's always still meat on the bone. Everyone could always, you can always, get a lower price. You can always beat up a dealer a little bit more, make them lose money, whatever the case is. Obviously there's no bottom to that unless you're getting it for free. You can always do better. So it's, that's a tricky thing to, argue definitively, but it's just if you do 300 deals a month by having really easy, quick deals that you do on your side, because that stuff takes time. So if you have your go-to salesman at your favorite Toyota dealer and you throw him, 30 deals a month for everyone who calls in for a new RAV4, and they can supply that and, give it to him again for a price where no one feels like they're getting ripped off. Everyone, pads their pockets and, he keeps on, keeping the machine rolling there, so, I won't say I'm a big fan of his, just based on that stuff, because I don't think it's still totally transparent. He should say hey, look, this might not be the best deal. And maybe he does. I don't know. Again, I don't follow him or anything, but the stuff I've seen, it seems like he's kind of over promising and under delivering a little bit. I mean, he still has repeat customers and people who continue to sign up for the services. And again, if $1,000 is worth it to never talk to a car salesman, that's fine. I don't like talking to car salesmen either, but maybe I'm just cheap. That's not worth $1,000 for a mediocre deal. And they're mediocre deals in my opinion. So, that's, that's my 2 cents on Delivered. Maybe an unpopular opinion, because again, the dude's super popular, but it's also, he's essentially a broker and he's not operating with a broker's license. So there's some gray legal area there too, in my opinion, just my opinion. He claims everything's on the up and up and all that. And maybe it is, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but there's, and also there's a lot of manufacturers. There's been this stuff in the news recently that they're actually cracking down on brokers in general, even official brokers, about being a middleman and being like, okay, well, we don't want to have brokers because now you got another person there, and it kind of muddies the waters for manufacturers even more. So dealer or manufacturers don't even like brokers already. And then, guys like him at Delivered, again, claiming these great deals. It can again reflect poorly on the dealership, on the car brand, all this other stuff. So it's a little tricky. I don't know how long that's going to be a thing, honestly, based on how manufacturers are feeling about it and how, yeah. I mean, we'll have to see. Again, he's doing a good job with it. I think he's a really good marketer as well, and he's very savvy with how he posts this stuff online and stuff, as far as the clips, the viral clips, and the negotiations and stuff. But yeah, not the way I would do things, I guess. We'll leave it at that. But anyway, Jordan, thank you so much for being a member for 31 months now. He says, are first gen BMW i3 i8 buyers suckers or necessary to fund the new i3? Also, first gen Fusion C-Max hybrid PHEV buyers, 2019 C-Max, is it reliable? So the first question there, the i3 and the i8, no, I mean, any early adopter of any technology is not a sucker. They're just the early adopters. They often have more bugs they have to deal with. They have, you're buying into something new that will be obsolete quicker than if you bought something that was tried and true, not cutting edge. So that's, no, I don't think there's anything. It also, I mean, i3 and i8 were not very profitable, so they didn't really fund the new i3 either. The new i3 is so different too that it's not even remotely anything like the old i3 or the i8 for that matter. So, I think that, the things that funded i3 were the massive amounts of X5 and X3 sales. Honestly, like anything else, all the electric Ford stuff's being funded by the gas guzzling trucks. It's kind of funny, and that's the ultimate like own, because all these like people who drive these huge trucks like get all mad at EV drivers, but I'm like, thanks, you're the one who's financing this. Because if they weren't buying all those trucks and droves, these manufacturers would not have the money to be investing in all these futuristic things. So despite their best attempts, they are helping to bring about electrification. So, and then as far as first gen Fusion C-Max hybrid PHEV buyers, that's the same thing. It's very much an experimental kind of new thing. Any first gen of anything, but especially a new territory, new segment like that Ford. That's to me that's again just you're buying something that fits what you're looking for. The C-Max, is it reliable? I believe so. Actually, one of Beth's uncles had a C-Max for a long time, actually really enjoyed it. I'm not sure why he actually got rid of it, because he's been like unhappy with all the cars he's bought since then. But he loved that C-Max, and it seemed like it treated him well. And I think maybe he just wanted something a little bit bigger. Maybe that was the reason why, but I don't know. Anyway, yeah, C-Max seems to be okay. I mean, that Ford hybrid system is really bulletproof. It's been in use in the Ford Escape hybrid, and those were used as San Francisco taxis for over a decade. A lot of them, I think, had over like 500,000 miles on them. Original battery for, I think, a lot of them as well, and still going great. So I actually think, and this applies to the new Ford hybrids as well, or just the current ones, the Maverick and previously the Escape hybrid. I think those are actually probably the most reliable Fords you can buy. I mean, I think all the V8 stuff is pretty safe, and even most of the EcoBoosts are pretty good these days too. But like, if you're looking to drive hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles, I'd go for, like, I'd be in a Maverick hybrid. If you're sticking with Ford, Maverick hybrid or Escape hybrid is absolutely that. I have full confidence. Like, I have as much confidence in that going that long distance as I would with a Toyota, because I think it actually initially was some shared Toyota electrical technology. But yeah, I have no doubts that's going to be very reliable. Should be. Thanks again for being a member for 31 months now, Jordan. And let me see here. So getting back to the other questions here from earlier, where so let me see. So Howie says there are some pics online, definitely some sort of Golf R. Interesting. Okay, I'll have to check that out. Thanks for letting me know. And Chad says, I told Jordan I saw an EV from a bankrupt company that focused more on style than quality. The charger port was stuck half open. He guessed it immediately. I'm guessing, was it like a Fisker or something like that? But Danny says his 2019 Traverse, nicknamed Big Bertha, is going to be paid off soon this month. We refinanced it when the lease was up on it, when the 3-year lease was up, and it only had 48,000 miles. Nice. Well, I'm glad it's almost paid off. That's, I'm sure, a very good feeling. And B. Mitchell says the 27 F-150 is also supposed to get a bigger Coyote Predator crossbreed, with the only EcoBurst remaining being the 2.7. Really? They're giving up on the 3.5? That would be wild. I mean, the 3.5 is, I mean, and that's even the same motor they use in the Power Boost. I can't imagine them getting rid of the Power Boost. I'm pretty sure, is Power Boost hooked up to the 2.7? I thought it was hooked up to the 3.5. I don't know. Yeah, where you heard that, I would not bank on that. I mean, there could be a bigger V8 for sure. That sounds, because Ford's been kicking around with a 429 kind of idea and stuff for a while. So, I mean, there's, I could see that happening, but I couldn't see them walking away from all the 3.5 stuff. But I could be wrong, I guess. We'll see. And Danny says, when the lease was up last time, it had like 22,000 miles on it. We were paying $445 a month on the Traverse with the refinanced lease. Could have been worse on the pricing, but the sales guy who was helping my parents with refinancing was shocked it only had 22,000 miles put on it in 3 years. Nice. And B. Mitchell says, with all that, I'm content to wait till late summer to see what really happens. Besides, my 13 F-150 will be mostly parked for the summer. Nice. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, see what happens. And yeah, I might get a really good deal on a 25 if you can still track down a 25 in that color that you're looking for. That would be even more leverage as time goes by. So yeah, you hold all the cards there, B. Mitchell. So hopefully that helps some dealer to play ball with you eventually. Let me see. Howie says Golf R Club Sport. Possibly, yeah, it could be something like that. And that would be very much anything that's an easy thing we've seen kind of before, a suspension tune, a light, reflash on the ECU to give you a few more horsepower, stickers, graphics, that would be more, what I would expect. The only other thing I can think of with Golf R could be maybe them bringing back the manual, if they have found a way to do it just, for the States or something, or found a way to, bring it back, for whatever reason. I mean, that's the only other thing I could think of there as far as what might be up their sleeve. But I can't imagine it being a 5-cylinder, but I could be wrong. And Danny says Kirk was also saying sedans are making a comeback, with GM bringing back the Buick sedan. Maybe Ford will bring back the Fusion. It was selling so well until it got canceled. Yeah, we'll see what happens with. So Ford, it sounds like, based on what they said, there is going to be probably I think this is what Jim Farley's been kind of teeing up slightly. I think there's going to be a new electric sedan that is going to be on that universal EV platform, because they said, I think it's going to be like 6, 7, 8, something like that kind of. I wasn't trying to do a 6, 7 joke, but some I can't remember the exact number, but something around that, of just all these vehicles that would be built on that universal EV platform. Now we know there's going to be a truck. There's going to be, of course, an SUV, probably multiple SUVs. But I think one of them he was saying was going to be a sedan, and probably a sub $30,000 EV sedan, probably rear-wheel drive. And I think he kind of said it's going to be kind of like a fun kind of thing. So I'd say that is, something we'll see probably before the end of the decade. And also, I'm pretty sure we're supposed to be seeing some kind of 4-door Mustang, sedan, gas-powered with a V8 and a manual. I mean, I don't know. I still have not seen a single spy shot of something like that. And I would have to imagine there'd be something at least in heavy camo, or some kind of weird looking mule running around. But I don't know. I keep hearing stuff like it should be really close, but I feel like it's been close for years. And so I don't know. It seems like the next thing coming from Mustang is going to be a hybrid. And they did say that's something that is coming. And there supposedly have been test mules running around with the hybrid setup for a while now, which tells me that that is probably the next thing to come from Mustang. But I think that Ford is still planning on doing, I'm pretty sure planning on doing some kind of four-door Mustang, gas sedan. So, but yeah, sedans are seeming to make a comeback, and it's more so though. I don't know if it's necessarily because people are falling in love with sedans. I think what I've been seeing is sedans are growing because the SUVs are dropping, but it's more so a compensation for the high gas prices and for the high prices of vehicles. And it's just that, like for example, Hyundai Elantra, I think was up 25% this past month or something like crazy, really, a nice climb. And it's pretty much just coming down to the fact that you can get an Elantra for like, a couple grand cheaper than a Tucson, and you get better fuel efficiency. And I think a lot of people are coming around to the idea that, hey, this sedan isn't this cramped little penalty box like sedans used to be. I have a huge back seat. I've got the same tech. And I get it all again for a less price, smaller price tag. So like, and you get, the better fuel economy as a benefit as well. I think a lot of people still do value sitting up high. And again, with everyone being surrounded by a zillion F-150s everywhere they turn, I think that, SUVs still do have staying power, but I think that, for people who can't pay a premium for a hybrid or won't pay a premium for a hybrid, the next best thing is to downsize. And we saw this before. We saw this in 2008, especially. Everyone dumping their gigantic vehicles and getting into smaller stuff. And that actually led to a real big resurgence of hatchbacks because, after the recession of 2008 and that downsizing trend, that's when, guess what popped up? Fiesta. Focus was always around, Fiesta kind of came back after, being away for a long time with the Festiva before it and stuff. But, so Fiesta came back, there's all these little things, Yaris and all these others, which again, some of them were already around before then, but a lot of them weren't. And I think that was kind of like the leap that a lot of them took. So we'll see what happens. Also, I don't think I think it's a little too early to throw a party for sedans comeback yet, because I just read there was another thing. I think it was the Wall Street Journal or something like that just did a report here a few days ago that now because of the USMCA trade deal, a lot of these even like compact sedans are in trouble. And the executives from Toyota, from Nissan, from Honda, all were saying like now Civic is in danger of possibly having an issue with being in America. Sentra, all these bigger ones, because like Sentra's built in Mexico. A lot of the Civic stuff is still built in Canada, and a lot of even they said like not even like the actual assembly, but they're saying the big problem is like the seats for the Civic or whatever come from Canada or come from Japan or whatever, and it's just all these parts coming in. They're also getting tariffs still, I believe, and like this they're just basically saying I think the deadline is July 1st for the trade agreement with Canada and Mexico. That needs to be addressed, and there needs to be some fix. I'm assuming it's on the to-do list for the administration here, but I think they're putting pressure on the administration to be like, look, like you gotta mend fences with Mexico and with Canada, because like they're saying we may not have Sentra in a year or two if they can't, because there's just tiny little profit margins, and with low cost vehicles there's just not a lot of wiggle room there. And if you're already paying a tariff and you're already paying tariffs on all these other parts, and it's hard to get this stuff in because of all this trade disruption, it's like we don't even know if that stuff's going to stick around. So it could be another one of these things that gets hot, and right as it's getting hot, it ends. I mean, I have to assume that something's got to give, because like, even Sentra is a huge seller, but I mean, Civic especially is a huge seller that Honda wouldn't just, well, I mean, Honda these days, the way they like throwing their hands up in the air, they could very well just throw their hands up in the air and give up on Civic. But like, they're like, we can't bring the entire supply chain into the United States. It just doesn't work, because then guess what? You have to pay people higher wages for a lot of these things that come from other, more remote parts of the world for, like the fabric for the seats, or, all these little parts. I mean, there's thousands upon thousands of parts that make up every single car, and all those thousands of parts come from a bunch of different places, and all of the final assembly point does is take the seats that are shipped in from some other country and the headlights shipped in from some other country and whatever, and you just put it all together there. But like you still got to bring all that stuff in, and that's where they're saying like, with how all these things are kind of being constrained, they might just like they might not be able to get seats for Civics anymore. So you can't build Civics if you can't get the seats for them without paying a huge amount. And then it turns into this thing where the costs just balloon and gets to the point where you can't stay in business anymore, like Spirit Airlines. It's the same deal. So it's one of those things. Again, they can take it on the chin for a while, and they have, in the past year here, we've been dealing with this, but something's got to give eventually. And I think that sedans are in danger, especially the cheaper ones. Carbuzz actually did an article a few days ago about it, so you can check that out if you're interested. But not good times for cheap cars, and it's the exact opposite of what we need. And what the administration talks about trying to do is improve car affordability, talking about, K cars are coming in and stuff, and we can't even keep compact sedans around because of the way everything's being so mismanaged, in my opinion. But anyway, moving off that, let me see. Bryson says, bring back the Nissan Titan. I mean, I think that Nissan might be tempted to, especially with the popularity of, more of their truck-based stuff now. But it's just so hard to crack. I think Tundra is a good example of that. Beating the Americans at their own game is really hard. And Titan tried, but it never really succeeded. I think the first gen had some good momentum, but the second gen it was too anonymous to, I think, really, it just lost a lot of its character and its edge. And I just think it never recovered from that. So, I mean, they could try it again and, give it some Xterra kind of crazy styling or something. So it's not just like a Ford F-150 knockoff like the last gen was, but it's really hard to do. I mean, maybe there's an opportunity now with Toyota really dropping the ball hard with Tundra and that engine and stuff. Maybe, but I don't even think Nissan, what would they use to power it? You'd have to use the twin turbo V6 from all the other stuff and, be stuck with that, which I guess would be competitive enough. It's 400 horsepower. It's about what the 3-liter does, but I don't know if that motor is good for towing and stuff. But, they can't bring back the V8 because they don't have it around in anything anymore. I guess they could just use the Armada stuff and just, make that into a pickup truck again. I mean, it's possible. Maybe they would find, some success there to maybe fill the void where Toyota's dropping it. But I don't know. It'd be fun, but I think that the Tundra is a cautionary tale these days. And Chad says, annoyed with AutoZone. Got my battery tested. They said just let it charge up on a long drive, but it's good. The next day it was dead. Jordan got it jumped and went back. Man, that's unfortunate. They refused to install. They refused the install included with the price since it would take over 45 minutes. He drove home and switched it out in minutes and returned the old for the core refund. Man, AutoZone, that sounds like, you got a bad location because they're usually, I mean, in my experience in the past, they've been good. Maybe they're not anymore. I don't know. But that's a shame that you had to do all that extra work. That's annoying. And I see Squigga says, what's up, guys? Works fan here. Yep. What's up, everybody? That's it. And thanks so much for stopping by. And Michelle says, thanks for the reminder, Chad. My battery's approaching 6 years old now, so I got to start planning for a new battery. Definitely something you don't want to be stranded with, with a dead battery for sure. So, make sure you get that taken care of here soon. And let me see. So confirmation says the Maverick Lobo is disappointing because I think it needed more horsepower. It would have been fun with more power. And I talked about this in my Lobo Maverick review. I think stickier tires also would have been, a bigger improvement too. I mean, the power, it's not slow. It would have been nice to see more power, but, I can kind of see it from both sides. Like, warranty wise, it's harder to put a warranty on something if you're boosting the power up more. But on the other side, it's very easy to do if you're willing to take that risk, from a manufacturer standpoint. But the good news is, again, with that turbo motor, if you do want more power, you don't care about the warranty, you can always up it yourself. And I think Ford Performance, I think they have a tune for that motor to give you more power. And I think that comes with a 2-year, 24,000 mile warranty with that. Not as good as the 5-year 60, but something. But yeah, I know. Maverick Lobo though is still a ton of fun. I had a blast in that thing. That was such a cool little car. Maybe it's just the hot hatch fan in me. That's essentially what it is. It was such a good car. And George says, "Thank you, Matt. Mine is a 2025 Outer Banks with a tech pack and desert sand. Nice, that's awesome." And Howie says, "Lions fan. What about your Steelers?" I don't follow sports. Don't have the time, unfortunately. I wish I had the time. I'd get into the baseball though more than football. I'm just never been a big football fan, but hopefully the Lions have a good year this year for you. Yeah, for me, I'm a terrible Pittsburgher because I'm not not into the Steelers that much. And Mr. 705 says, I wanted to bail on the deal, but I've already been waiting 2 months. They told me I should be fine with the $2,000 less because I'm getting the vehicle for MSRP. I didn't like that comment. Yeah, I don't understand how dealers think people are stupid enough to like not be thrown by that. Like, hey, you're giving me $2,000 less for my trade-in. Like that immediately puts a $2,000 markup on the car. Essentially, you're just shifting the money around, but like that's what they're doing is giving you a $2,000 markup. Unless your car actually dropped $2,000 in value since when you start negotiations and now, which is highly unlikely. And with used car prices like really skyrocketing here, I mean, it's probably the opposite. It might have even gone up. So like, oh yeah, I would have some choice words for them. Oh man. Anyway, confirmation says, I must say that the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio is a gorgeous vehicle, and I'll die on that hill, especially considering the current M3. Oh, yeah, no, I'm right there with you, confirmation. I think it's beautiful. I always thought the Giulia was beautiful. I don't know, some people didn't love that Alfa, grill, but I always thought they were gorgeous. I still love them. And yeah, I know I still may end up owning a Giulia someday. We'll see what happens, but I would not hesitate. They're fantastic cars. And let me see. Fixer says, what do you think about the new XUV 7XO? I don't know what that is, unfortunately. I'm guessing it's one of the new Chinese things that came out. I still can't keep track of it all. And I don't pay very much attention, admittedly, because there are things we can't get in the States. And until we can, I pay about as much attention as I do to the European car market, where there's a bunch of stuff I also don't pay attention to either, because it's just like forbidden fruit, and it's kind of a waste of time to follow some of that stuff. I mean, it's fascinating, but yeah, I haven't kept up with all the Chinese brands. There's just so much to keep track of there. It's overload for me. It's very overwhelming. And B. Mitchell says, my good dealer I've known for now 50 years even mentioned that the new Brighton Ford has lost their way compared to a decade ago. We used to dealer swap all the time, but it's now wise ass kids. Yeah, that's unfortunate. And Darnell says, last 2 cars for me, even in state, did all paperwork over email. Just said I was too busy to come by. That's nice. Yeah, that's the way to do it. That's very smart. And also, sorry, I missed the other super chats here. So Chad says, ding ding, was the Fisker Ocean for the car that didn't have the charge port sealed correctly. That's funny. And thank you for the super chat. And thank you also, Chad, for gifting a membership there. And happy to see that B. Mitchell was able to receive that. That's awesome. So thanks so much, Chad, for the generosity. And Jordan, thank you for another super chat too. He says, Ford Mustang wagon, a Magnum concept, hybrid or ICE. Yeah, I don't know about a Mustang wagon. I mean, I guess, if they do the 4-door, they could also make it a liftback like the Charger now, something like that. But I don't think there's any rumors of it being a wagon. A Magnum I'd love to see, but that's, I don't know how. I mean, I would love to see it, and I think there's still a slight case to be made for it, but because of just how huge the hatch is in the new Charger, I don't know if you really need it. I mean, if you're stacking stuff, sure, but I mean, with the length and the width in that new Charger trunk, I mean, you can bring home, a 60-inch TV or whatever, no problem in that thing. I mean, it's huge. So it makes it honestly harder to justify. I think last gen you had a stronger case to be made for a Magnum. But now, I mean, I would still welcome it with open arms, but I don't know if the business case is as strong for it now. But thank you so much for the super chat, Jordan. And let me see. So Vishal says, that reminds me, I saw Lucid Gravity for the first time today. Pretty good looking and a lot bigger in person than I thought. Yeah, they're pretty big. Yeah. And I mean, some people even think they look like a minivan, which I don't totally agree with. I can kind of see a little bit of that, but it's a nice big size. So it should be very practical. Actually, a lot better, packaging wise, I think, than the Tesla Model X for sure. Yeah, it's good to see some gravity starting to show up on the roads there. And Timothy says, is the 2026 Volvo EX90 going to be a lifesaver for Volvo? It has 800-volt architecture, electrochromatic roof, new Orion chip. May you review it? Maybe you mean EX60 because EX90 is already out and it's not selling well. And that is 800-volt architecture though in that, and that's still it's not cutting it for them. As far as EX60, I think that could be very good. I'm very excited about it myself, and it seems very impressive. It's just going to come down to what things are like, whenever that launches here, as far as how much of a sales success it is. I think Volvo buyers are certainly more open to EVs, so I don't think it'll be, quite as hard as some other brands launching an EV. But I think, it comes down to how high gas prices stay and for how long they stay. I think we will see elevated gas prices all through this year. It's going to take a long time to come down, I think, assuming things ever improve, which doesn't seem like the Strait of Hormuz is opening up anytime soon anyway. So, I still think the EVs have a lot of potential this year to have a huge year. I think, it's just going to it'll have to end up being, a breaking point for everyone that's different as far as when everyone says uncle and people start to switch over. I actually, when I was at the Ford dealer to review the F-150 Lobo here this past week, I asked one of the salesmen, are you seeing a bunch of people coming in for Mach-E again, or is it not helped? And she said that like Mach-E, there's still not a lot of interest in it, at least from their dealer. She's like, everyone just wants Maverick Hybrid because it's the only hybrid thing really outside of the Power Boost F-150, which still gets like 24 mpg. She's like, everyone wants Maverick Hybrid right now, and I think that also is combined with the fact that now it's available with all-wheel drive. Last year they introduced that, and I reviewed it, last year. But she's like, everyone wants a Maverick right now. That's it. So, there still could be some ways to go. It sounds like maybe at least for that dealer and that brand in particular, it's not like everyone rushing in to buy EVs yet. I know in the used market, like I think Mach-E's are some of the fastest selling used EVs because you can get them for 25 grand and it's a lot of car for that money. But it sounds like it's mostly used EVs that are, doing a really good business because, again, people are so crunched with money that, the new prices, even if there are discounts, it's just a complete turnoff for a lot of people. And they're just going straight to the used market and not even looking at new pricing. So, we'll see. But I mean, yeah, used EVs are having a huge moment right now. And I think it's just going to get better. So I think, maybe Volvo might be experiencing some of that. But yeah, we'll see. I think EX60 should be pretty good for them. But I think, there's probably going to be a regular XC60 version that's gas powered because, they're not going to, I don't think an EX60 is going to save the company alone. I think that car, again, with gas power as well, could actually really help them a lot. But I think they're struggling, and I don't think, unfortunately, being all electric is going to be the key to success right now for them. So I'm excited for it though, and we'll see how it all pans out. I'm hoping to get an EX60 press car later this year. I know everyone currently is right now in Barcelona to review it. Unfortunately, I did not get that invite. But so, and then there'll be probably some US stuff they'll do. I'm guessing it'll be the fall by the time I finally get one to review. But I definitely am going to review one. I want to review one. It's pretty easy for me to get Volvos. And that's one we will see how our finances go here next year. But, if we could afford it, an EX60 is probably at the top of our list for potential replacements for the Lyriq when that lease is up next year. So I personally, even if no one's going to watch the video, I just personally wanted for a week to try it out. So I will definitely review it. And I'm appreciating that at least one person will be interested in that review. So that's good. And thanks for letting me know about your interest there, Timothy. And let me see. Theodore says, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Me and my wife went to drop off our car to get fixed, and he tried to give us a new Mustang for a loaner. What do you think? I don't know. Yeah, there's multiple ways to take that, I guess. Comes down to, yeah, a lot of factors. Um, I mean, as far as Mustang goes, I mean, Mustang's actually doing pretty well sales wise now, so I don't think it's like them making Mustangs into loaners. I'm honestly shocked that there was a Mustang as a loaner, unless it's a Mach-E. But regular Mustang doesn't sound like a good loaner car, just because unless you're only loaning them to people with Mustangs, everyone else will be complaining about, having a two-door as a loaner car, I'm sure. But I mean, it sounds like a fun loaner though. So congrats on that, and hope you have a blast in it. And Chad says Alex from Alex on Autos, now he's on another channel, had a pretty bad fall. I didn't know if you all know each other or if he's healing up. If you mean, I know he got a gash on his eyelid there, or his eyebrow. So I think it's mostly healing up. I think it's mostly over that, unless there's been something new. I don't know, but yeah, I'm hoping he's doing well. But I haven't seen him in a while because he's been busy with his whole kid thing that he's got going on. So he's new dad kind of thing. So that's keeping him busy. But yeah, it's been probably about a year or so since I've maybe seen him at this point. It's been a while. And let me see. Also Chad says, thank you so much, Chad, for another super chat. He says Slate needs to come through so I can get a used one. Yeah, well, that's the thing that, yeah, it's tough because a lot of people do want those used vehicles and those good deals, but someone's got to buy them new. That's the tough thing. But I'm excited for Slate. It sounds like they're making good progress here. I think next month is when we get final pricing, so I'm excited to hopefully have that work out well, and hopefully it's off to the races here soon after for them. And Kraken, thanks so much for being a member for 49 months now. I really appreciate that. One of the longest running members here. He says 4 years, baby. Don't remember if I celebrated it. Yeah, I'm not sure if you did or not, but yeah, I hope you enjoy the new badge there for 4+ years. And thank you so much for being one of the first supporters of the channel here. I really appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. Hope Kraken's doing well, and hope you're having a good time there. But now we got the driving weather here. You can hopefully go out and have fun with the End Club and all that. But thanks so much again. I really appreciate it. And let me see. Michelle says, totally fair opinions on delivered. I think I would use his service on like high demand, hard to negotiate cars like the Toyotas. I think anything else, I probably could do it on my own. And Mr. 75 says, delivered never claims to be a money saving service. Most of his clients are people who just want the deal done for them. If I was starting a business, I'd follow the money as well. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't blame him for that. If that's, all that the clients want is to just like, basically have a Tesla kind of experience where you do it all online and everything's kind of set up for you, that makes sense. So his website, I mean, maybe he has since changed it, but a month or two ago, whenever I was reading up about this stuff, his website in some places does say that he's going to give you a good deal. So he kind of claims to save money, but then other times, publicly, he always like, whenever he's talking about it, he's like, no, I don't claim that. But then on his website and some of the sales pitchy stuff that he has on his site, he does like suggest that. So that's again where it's like the language is very important, and the language you use and just how the consistency there is very important too, or lack thereof. Because if you start sending mixed messages, then that's where people can read in between the lines or kind of get the wrong idea. But again, his record speaks for himself. He's got a ton of clients, and I think that alone is a judgment on the dealer, system, and that whole thing just being rotten to the core, and so anyone coming in, even not giving you great deals, even not maybe being the most cost effective, it's even that, as incomplete as that may be, is still like a huge upgrade for people that are willing to pay $1,000 for that. It's just, I think that's really hard for me to wrap my head around. I mean, I don't doubt it. There's certainly plenty of people that got $1,000 to throw out the window for something like that. But like, you would think with people being so adamant on like, they don't want to pay a cent over MSRP, or they don't want to pay a cent over invoice, or they want to, just really drive a hard bargain. It's just crazy that so many people are willing to spend that. I could see a lot of like high net worth people spending that, or, people who, any luxury brand, I'd say, okay, I could see him doing a lot of business there, but those aren't high volume things, so it's just kind of surprising that the kinds of cars that are more for frugal buyers are having people volunteer, $1,000 at the drop of a hat in hopes of getting a slightly better deal. I mean, you hope it pays for itself, but again, I feel like people are selling themselves short. Like, yes, it's a pain. And I mean, I did it, twice last year, and I didn't enjoy. I mean, the Fiat especially, I wanted to pull my hair out because there's just so much incompetence, just basic, basic stuff where it's like, holy crap, like these. I mean, again, they're high burnout, churn and burn kind of employees, and a lot of these, sales giants are just these, conglomerates that don't give a crap about, actually treating people well or anything. But even still, like if you're gonna do the job, man. Like don't like, it's just it was amazing to me how terribly people phone it in, especially for a career that is mostly commission based. Where like if you're not like hitting the phones and you're not like making deals happen, like you are starving. Unless you're like independently wealthy, then what are you doing selling cars? I just it always blows my mind how horrible a lot of car salesmen are. But like, it's just yeah, it's just kind of crazy to me that's, I still like, as much as I hated doing the Fiat deal, especially the Lyric was fine because thankfully, we had our dealer that we work with here that, I've done the reviews with, and they made sure that they didn't, give me any BS. So that was smooth and easy. But like with the Fiat, yeah, it was a huge pain in so many ways. And I mean, I can get into that more. That could be another fun video down the road. But like they just like completely screwed up the title work because it was out of state, and they had acted like they'd never sold a car out of state before, and like it was just like the most colossal screw up as far as the title for that car. I think they still actually had to ask the state of Pennsylvania for a replacement title because like they sent stuff in, and they asked me if I had the title. I'm like, no, I don't have the title. I don't own the car. Like, it's so it was like a whole thing, and they didn't know where the title was. It just like all these administrative people too. I guess they're the ones that really can like just completely fail at their jobs, because if they're all hourly or salary, they're just like horrible. But I'm like, the amount of people in this country, especially that just like do not do any work at all and collect a paycheck, still blows my mind. There's so many people. I'm like, man, can you imagine having a job where you can be horrible at your job every single day, do hardly anything, and still make ends meet? Like, it's got to be nice. But anyway, yeah, it's just but as much as I hate the Fiat thing, like I would do that deal over and over again for $130 a month for a car. And like I don't know if Delivered could match that, at least last year. Maybe this year they could. But yeah, I think there's some opportunity there for people, I think, with a little bit of training to do it themselves, and it doesn't have to be a complete nightmare. You just gotta find a good dealer. But anyway, B. Mitchell says, you missed my early post. The all-new 27 F-150 is getting the Godzilla V8. Ford F-150 buyers are sick and tired of the 3.5 EcoBurst issues, and the Power Boost has reliability issues. Interesting. So, I mean, I don't think Power Boost is going anywhere. I mean, maybe I just haven't seen all this stuff. I haven't heard anything officially, so I'm skeptical of it. And they may be pivoting for a few years, but again, I mean, unless they hybridize the V8s, they're going to do the same thing as Ram and run into a brick wall in 2029. And I don't understand how that's a good business plan. Like, sure, you want to capitalize for 2 years, go for it. But like, that's all you got. And then, there will be regulations again, I'm assuming, in 2029, 2030. And if you're gambling on that, you think there won't be regulation changes, that's a huge gamble for a giant car company that has a long, product cycle and has to plan for the 2030s today, not in, 2 or 3 years. That's a big risk. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see if they are truly dropping all of their 6-cylinder stuff and the hybrid stuff and just going straight V8s for everything. That would be a bold move. Farley, I don't know. He's an enigma to me. There's sometimes where he makes a lot of sense, and other times where he sounds like he's on another planet, and I don't know what he's smoking. So I never know how to take him, honestly. But if that's the choice that he's made, then I'm going to be starting to look at Ford the same way I'm looking at Ram, where it's like, great short term, rake it in, guys. But the party will not last. And when the music stops, it's going to be ugly. And then they're already running and asking for a bailout in 2030. And it's going to be a giant fiasco. And I hope they don't get it if that's what it comes to, because you can't run your company into the ground with stupid short-sighted decisions. You have to plan for the future. But anyway, so let me see here. Darnell says updated Ford Fusion with the Maverick powertrain would be pretty reasonable versus the Accord. Oh yeah, no, I totally agree. There is a great proposition there, and I think, I mean, this is the same kind of thing as Honda with the low hanging fruit. Like, Ford should put the Maverick hybrid powertrain in everything that it fits in, which it should fit in basically everything. But like, it's amazing to me that Bronco Sport does not have it yet. It's amazing that Bronco doesn't have any kind of hybridized thing yet. I mean, Ford has said everything's going to be hybridized, which also, going back to B. Mitchell's point, Farley just said like a week or two ago, everything in the Ford lineup will be hybrid or have a hybrid option. So if they're getting rid of the power boost, then they're going to do some kind of new hybrid for F-150, but there will be a hybrid F-150, because he said every single thing is going to have a hybrid variant, including Mustang, including Bronco, all that stuff. It's all going hybrid. So, I mean, maybe they just do Godzilla with some kind of little electric motor or something attached. I don't know. But according to Farley's words, there is going to be a hybrid of some variant. So I don't know where you're getting the info there about them just kind of going all V8, but I wouldn't bank on that completely, because it's going to have some kind of hybrid according to Farley. But getting back to Darnell's comment, yeah, it's crazy, but I agree. Yeah, that would easily, I mean, they already did it with Fusion. I mean, honestly, they could actually just bring back old Fusion from the dead from 2020, put it on sale today, and I think it would actually still do pretty decent. Maybe it wouldn't be the best seller in the segment, but like, they had it. They had it all. They had the hybrid, they had the plug-in hybrid. Like, Ford was absolutely on the right track, and they were so close to nailing it, and then they pulled the plug. And I think, like, if they would have stuck the course with that, they would have been in a really good spot. And yeah, it's just, I mean, you got to keep it fresh, because I think, like, with Escape, they didn't keep it fresh, and that was part of the reason that vehicle's downfall. And also, they screwed up the pricing, which is the other paramount thing. You cannot screw up pricing. And like, I mean, I reviewed the plug-in hybrid Ford Escape a couple of years ago. It's just too expensive, and that was the whole crux of my review was, this is great in a vacuum, but it's too expensive. And now on the used market, they're a really good value, great deal, and probably a really solid choice. But new, it was stupid to give, unless you got a gigantic discount on it. And so, I think it was a good vehicle at its core if they hadn't screwed up the pricing. So, but I think, yeah, Fusion absolutely has a business case to be made for it, for sure. And it's a shame they didn't just keep that stuff going with all the Fusion stuff that it already had. And let me see. Chad, thank you so much for a super chat again. He says, this administration accidentally made more of a case for hybrids and electric cars than they ever meant to. I love the irony. Oh, you and me both. It's so funny. It's so funny. They cannot help shooting themselves in the foot. And I mean, I just sit back with my popcorn at this point. Like, yeah, it's like everyone was writing off EVs, and it's like, all right, let's see how long everyone enjoys $5 gas. Like, it's, yeah. This war is doing more for the EV movement this year. I mean, this year was supposed to be horrible. I was expecting it to be horrible. Everyone was expected to be horrible for EVs. Like, I didn't expect anyone to be caring about EVs. I mean, even with my reviews, I was planning on reviewing very few EVs this year, because I was like, aside from a couple of new ones that were priced really well, like Trail Seeker, the BZ Woodland, like there was some where I'm like, okay, this makes sense. Even if you don't care about the electric thing, like, it's just a ton of power for a really good price. So like, there are some of those I was always going to cover, but like now I'm like, okay, give me every EV and hybrid I can find, because this is what people are going to be wanting the rest of this year. Again, because people can maybe handle $5 gas for a little bit, for a month or two. When you go 6 months into this, you're approaching the holidays, whenever everyone's slightly bigger tax refunds this year. For some people, I mean, didn't help me out, but some people got a little bit of extra money there. Once that runs out, and that goodwill runs out, and it's and they're doing this right into the midterms. Like, a key thing, no matter what happened in the world, like, for as long as I've been alive, every year there's an election year and there's an important election, especially presidential elections, but even for the midterms, like gas always is like almost artificially cheap. Like, because you want to have, especially if you want to, either retain power or you want to, keep people on your side for the next election. You want things to be good. You want people to have money in their pockets. You want people to not be struggling. And like gas is basically the number one thing for that. Like having a high gas price in a year with record unpopularity and everything is just like a wild move. And this is, I'm kind of going into the weeds here. This is why they're doing other things to try and counteract that. But, like it's insane. I never in a million years would have thought we'd have high gas prices this year, no matter what happened, just because it's not in their best interest. But yeah, it's, again, I think it's great for the EV movement, and I'm happy for that. It's unfortunate though, because it is going to, drive up inflation. It's going to, make people poorer. And even people like me who I'm not buying gas, but like I, buy goods that are all trucked in with $7 diesel or whatever it ends up being here in a week or two. It's going to be bad for all of us. And everyone has already complained for years and years about inflation. Guess what? You don't like Civic being $30,000. Once this inflation, this new wave of inflation is done, give it a year or so to work through the supply chains and everything. That Civic's going to be 35 grand. And no one's wages are going to go up, and it's just going to get worse. And that's, the inflation is coming. It just takes time, but it's going to come. Like that's something that happens whenever you have, these high fuel prices. We saw again in 2022, because of the Ukraine war, and that drove everything up. And that was the driver of all this massive inflation, in addition to the COVID stuff. I don't know if it's going to be that bad, but like we will see inflation. And this is why they didn't lower interest rates at the last Fed meeting. And they probably, won't the rest of the year. And we might even get an increase in inflation to combat, or an increase in the interest rates to combat the inflation. Cause it's not a rosy outlook. We'll see what happens, but like, it's not great, but at least for those who have those EVs, that they're trying to sell, the manufacturers, this is a very nice windfall for them on that side. They're losing it on other sides though, because then you're losing out on the big profit, the big, trucks and stuff that are very profitable, that's going to get hurt, as a result of this. So they're going to take it on, they're going to get one thing that's going to be better, but then the other thing's going to be worse. And it's probably going to be more worse than better for them, even though, they're happy to move the EVs. It's just like not at the expense of the trucks. They don't want that, but it is going to be good for the EV movement, unfortunately. And it just highlights again why we need to get energy independent. And it's crazy that that's like a partisan thing. Like you would think everyone would be like, hey, I don't want to be beholden to, the powers that be for my economic well-being as far as my energy costs. Like, it's like you would think everyone would be behind getting solar panels on the roof, eventually once they can afford it. But like that's something that like you'd think everyone would want. I don't want to have power outages. I don't want to have brownouts or blackouts. I want to be self-sufficient. Like I think everyone would want to be self-sufficient. And yet still people are like, no, please, I want to be I want to be, totally dependent on, the gas pump. I want to be totally dependent on all this stuff instead. And it's kind of, I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it, but anyway, back on topic here. Darnell says Civic Hybrid is honestly tough to beat for the price. It is a very compelling option, but I think this is part of why Elantra is doing so well this past month, especially, is I think Elantra Hybrid is doing really well because it's cheap. It's a lot cheaper than Civic Hybrid, actually. So I think that Elantra Hybrid is one of the ones that does beat Civic. There's not many, you can also get a Corolla Hybrid cheaper. So there are some, but I mean, if you're an enthusiast, especially, it's the fastest one, it's the sportiest, and it's still 50 mpg. But there's a lot of other stuff. I mean, you can honestly, the problem is you can get a fairly decent, Camry base model with the hybrid standard, for around the same price. And this is actually another interesting thing, is that Prius is doing horrible. Right now, you think, again, hybrids are super hot. Prius should be flying off the shelves. People aren't buying Prius. And Toyota isn't coming out and saying this, but, some others have said this as well. So I don't think this is just my idea, but like, I think everyone that used to be a Prius driver is now a Camry driver, because you get pretty close to the same MPG. You get way more space, and especially now that Prius is, got a smaller hatch and the back seats, a little tighter and stuff. it, I think, drove a lot of people into Camry. And I think now Prius is kind of this niche thing, for those who want a few more MPG or just want the cool looks, or, the smaller size. But like, I think they kind of cannibalized Prius, not only with Camry being so good, but even like Corolla Cross for people who do want a good sized hatch. I mean, that again doesn't do as well as Prius with fuel economy, but it's, you're still getting people into the mid 40s with MPG. That's good enough for most people. And yeah, but it's like, that was the one big shocker from, this year so far as Toyota's sales, is that Prius is not doing well after, these high gas prices, which is crazy. But so I think that's the counterpoint to the Civic Hybrid. Is I think Camry is really, again, you got to restrain yourself on trims and options, but if you're, okay with those lower trims, I think it's actually the better buy. Just more space, and also, yeah, just and really nice car still with the new Camrys. And all right, let me see here. So Anthony says all manufacturers should bring back sedans at an affordable price point due to the rising fuel costs. Look at how well the Asian brands have been doing with sedan sales. They've been increasing, which I'm sorry, I know this, I'm just behind on the comments, but obviously we've already talked about that. So absolutely, totally agree. And Vishal says, I know this has been said a lot here, but as a Passat owner, it really sucks they don't make them anymore. I'd buy a new one since mine craps out. Once mine craps out, if they did. Yeah, I know. And I mean, yeah, that is available in Europe. It's just, again, sourcing the production, because you can't bring it over here because of tariffs anymore. If you're actually trying to price it competitively. So, and even like they just cleared out some more room in the factory that used to build the ID4 here in Tennessee. Now is going to be building more Atlases, because they're going all in on Atlas, because that's, better profit margin. And again, that's what everyone wants. Go for giant SUVs, and they're not wrong. So, I think that's going to be the right move, but I'd love to see them make a little bit of room in that factory to, build some Passats here or something. And the unfortunate thing though is Volkswagen is so slow to move and respond to these things. I'm like, they were bragging at the New York, well, not bragging, but they were saying at the New York Auto Show, oh, we're going to have, a new hybrid powertrain that's going to go into Tiguan, I think Atlas, as well as maybe Taos or Jetta, I don't know. They're doing a new hybrid thing, but they're saying like it's going to come before the end of the decade. Like that's the deadline. And I'm like, okay, like way behind the ball here, guys. Like way, way behind the ball. Like this should have been something you were talking about 5 years ago. And instead it's like now they're getting the hint, hey, maybe we should start working on a regular hybrid again. Like now you're getting that message. And then you take 3 to 4 years to actually put that, into production. Like it just, and this is the same problem with Honda, just moving so slow. And that's the biggest thing with the Chinese brands, is they come out with a new car every like 16 or 18 months. And like they constantly are up in the ante over and over with faster charge speeds, better batteries. And it's just like, this is why Honda said, like, we can't keep up. And it's true. They can't, because like, I don't know how these legacy companies can speed up operations, but they desperately, like, that's what they desperately need to do. Like, you got to speed this stuff up quick. And whether you use AI to, streamline some of this stuff or what, I don't know, but like someone's got to do something, because clearly if the Chinese can do it, it's possible. And, this is the engineering stuff we're talking about. We're not talking about, I mean, yeah, there's some money subsidizing that maybe, but like, it's just like, do you have enough manpower? Do you have whatever it is that China has that we don't have? Like, you got to copy that and copy it quick if you're actually trying. Because otherwise, not only like when the Chinese come here and they're already better priced, like there was that one big sedan they just came out with, a couple weeks ago that's like $15,000 and it looks like a 5 Series and is as nice as a BMW 5 Series. Like, I mean, they'd be more expensive here, especially if they have to build them here. But, even if it's half the price of a 5 Series and it's that impressive, like, I mean, they're, and then they come out with stuff every year and a half or something. Like, good luck. I mean, they're just, no one's gonna be able to keep up, it's gonna be crazy. It's just be complete. It won't even be like a fair fight. It's just gonna be like a complete, just no contest kind of contest. But yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I'd love to see Passat. They could finally get some get some NOS in there to speed them up or something. They're just so slow with anything at Volkswagen, sadly. And this is why they're like panicking every year. I feel like every year they're like, oh, we're on the verge of bankruptcy, and like everyone, they're always panicking and talking about layoffs and closing factories and stuff. Like they just can't catch a break. But it's like they're doing good stuff, but they just like they got to move faster. I think is the bottom line for some of this stuff. Anyway, B. Mitchell says Nissan would be far better off bringing back the full-sized vans. At least they had rock solid reliability. Yeah, vans could be another good thing. You're right. That's a good point. I'd love to see the Quest come back. And minivans are a very hot segment right now. So assuming that stays that way, I think absolutely that would be a promising thing for them. That's also not hard to do. I mean, they have most of the pieces there to put that together already. If you use Pathfinder's bones, and just make a new shell for it that's minivan and do it well. Yeah, I think that could be a solid plan for sure. And Chad says, driving through traffic, I started noticing that some of the Nissans with the V front end look like a scared cat. Interesting. I've never made that connection, I don't think. That's a funny one. And also he says, I was driving down a 4-lane highway when a modified Camry with a camera sticking off the top got beside me in the left lane and just stayed there. It took forever for me to pass. Name is probably Left Lane Hog. Right? Yeah. So they had a camera, so they were bragging with their filming or whatever that they were hogging the left lane. That's strange. Maybe they're trying to like slow down to have their buddies catch up so they can street race or something. I don't know. It's interesting. RJ, thanks for stopping by. And Chad says, how is the Toyota Crown doing? I'd like the concept for a less plush version. I actually didn't see Crown sales figures when I was looking through the sales stuff recently. I should go back and look at that. I don't think it's doing super well. Especially again, it Camry. It's just like Camry is on fire, and it's another one that kind of makes the Crown obsolete. It's just the same problem as Prius, really. Like Crown is hybrid. You would think they would just be, just completely running the table with the Crown just selling super well. But it's like again, Camry is cheaper. It's more spacious. You just get a Camry. Like all roads lead to Camry again. It's just. I'm happy for him because Camry is great, but it's just like, there's a lot of these overlapping things that are now starting to show, we're starting to see more of a distinct line in the sand of like, okay, like which models in the Toyota lineup actually deserve to stick around and which ones maybe, could be quietly put out to pasture with no one really minding. And I think Crown is definitely the first one here, that I think would be a no-brainer to get rid of. I'd like Crown, but it just seems like the idea of it being slightly higher off the ground isn't really, moving anyone. The more punchy Hybrid Max version, doesn't seem to be moving anyone. I think if they wanted to fix Crown, the one way you could capitalize on it right now would be to do a lowered GR Sport version with a Hybrid Max power plant, because then you have something the Camry doesn't offer, and you would be selling to an enthusiast who maybe doesn't care as much about the maximum amount of space and all that. And then you could have something pretty cool. But I'm sure that's a very far-fetched thing. I think there might be a GR Sport version of the other Crown variants in Japan, but I don't know if they do a GR Sport version of the regular Crown in Japan. I don't think they do. But anyway. Yeah, it'd be fun, but I don't think Crown's doing well. And RJ says my birthday is next week. Well, happy early birthday! I hope you have a great one, and hope you got another great year ahead of you here. And let me see. Kraken says that was odd. Never received a notification about you being live. I made it. Well, thanks for stopping by. And that's one of the good things about keeping these at the usual times, so that. Again, unless there's something like I wasn't able to do Wednesdays due to my road trip I was on, but unless there's something that comes up, I'm always here at the same time. So you can always kind of bank on that, hopefully. Let me see. Kraken says many spots of the week. Can't name them all because I saw so many. Buddy's a launcher and that blew up is doing well at the machine shop, getting honed for sleeves and pistons. His build is coming along. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad it's progressing nicely, and hopefully he's doing all right despite that blown motor there. Kraken says, got word my carbon fenders have shipped and will probably be here in about a month. My buddy is getting his carbon kit, fenders, hood, trunk in 2 weeks. Nice. You guys are going to have a full like SEMA ready car show worth of ends there pretty soon. That's awesome. And Mr. 705 says, yeah, they tried to say the vehicle dropped $2,000 because I drive 2,000 kilometers in 2 months. What a joke. Even with them coming back and only lowering and at $400, I'm still not happy with it, but I want the vehicle. Yeah. And that's tough, whenever they have that leverage, but yeah, there's no way it dropped $2,000 because you drove 2,000 miles or 2,000 kilometers. That's so silly. And Kraken says, Matt, my buddy wants you to come review his Elantra N once it's built. That'd be fun. I'd be up for that. Yeah, we'll have to maybe try to arrange something. Let me know when it's all ready. I don't get out much to do that kind of stuff, and it's harder for me to do road trips these days because the Fiat's not a good road tripper. It's just, not a big battery. I knew that going into it, but I just, I don't do very many road trips. And I do usually have press vehicles, but especially recently, the car companies are being a little weird about high miles on press cars now. So that's part of why I wasn't able to get a press car for this trip, and I ended up just doing it in the Lyric, which worked out because it ended up, being a pretty good video to do anyway. So I'm not mad about it, but like I was trying to get a press car to do that in instead, especially since the Lyric's a lease. I didn't love the idea of, putting 650 extra miles on a lease, but thankfully even with that road trip, we're kind of right where we need to be as far as miles because we have 10,000 miles a year, and July isn't that far away. We got, another 2.5 months till we hit the 10,000 mark, and we got plenty of, we got like 7,500 miles now or whatever. So we're fine, but I was hoping to get a press car for that. But anyway, so as far as traveling for reviews, a little bit harder for me, especially, this trip that I went on Wednesday, by the way, wasn't filming any car reviews. That was a very worthwhile trip, and that's why Beth was okay with me taking her car for the day. It's funny because she actually put her and my daughter in the Fiat, and she was driving around that all week, and she likes the Fiat, but she's like, I felt like I was in a clown car, which, man, that cut so deep. I love that little thing. But she was I think kind of embarrassed to be driving around in that thing all week, or not all week, all day. But my daughter loved it though, because that was actually the first time she had ridden in it, and she had a blast in it. All of her little school friends thought it was the most fun thing ever. They were all super excited about it. So that was fun. But so anyway, it's hard for me to take Beth's car unless I have a very good reason to take it, because she just uses it every day, and it's absolutely, something she needs. So we'll see. Yeah, I'm hoping, I can get some more press cars for road trips here. And I will be doing a couple more road trips in press cars that I've been able to get, advanced okay for. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully I can make a trip happen, a road trip there to come review the Elantra N. Let me see. Chad says, planning on watching the F-150 Lobo after this. Is it as cool as it sounds? Well, I don't want to give away the video completely. It's a really cool truck. I mean, I say this in the title, so I don't have to say much more beyond that, but the problem is the price, in my opinion. You can get a Lariat with the V8 still for the same money. So that's, especially, I like my creature comforts. I can live without them. Case in point, the Fiat. But if you're spending $60,000 on an F-150, you have to really love that sportier look. And some people do. Like B. Mitchell is interested in one. And, for those who that is worthwhile to them and they don't mind the stuff they miss out on, by all means, I think it's awesome. I love that Ford has a street truck back. I just wish that it was cheaper, because it's hard for me to justify, a bare bones interior in a $60,000 truck. I don't care how cool it looks or, what's under the hood. I know, again, inflation, but it's still just like, even when you compare it to other stuff, again, even Ford's own Lariat version of the F-150, it's just a lot. And if it were my money, I'd just go for a V8 Lariat, so that's kind of the only problem, but it's fun. It's a good time. It looks cool. And for those who are, just really wanting that street truck thing, it's great that it's an option. It's available to them now, And let me see. So Chad says, doesn't that mean crazy or something similar? Loco, I believe, is crazy. I don't know much Spanish, but I believe that's it. Lobo, I think it means something else. I can't remember what, but actually Lobo is what they call regular F-150s in Mexico. It's kind of interesting. Maybe someone else who's more cultured than myself can shed some light on that. But yeah, the Lobo thing does come from Mexico, which is kind of cool. But Nicholas says, hey Matt, what do you think of the Carrera T? I tried to test drive one, but someone had just bought it. So Carrera T seems really cool. The value proposition, but when you're talking about something like that, that's probably not a huge deal. So I like it. I like the fact that it's available. I like that Porsche listened to customers and understood, hey, people are cool with a base Carrera with a manual and the extra little touches that the T has, but like I think it's a really cool option that they offer that, and I'm very happy about that. I've never driven one, so I have no idea. I can't weigh in on even this current generation. The most recent 911 I've done was 991. I didn't even do the refresh .2 version, just the regular, first 991s. Most recent one. Porsche, they're very hard to get press cars from because they're struggling with profits and stuff, but they like to act like they're this elite brand that only lets the chosen ones drive them and stuff for as far as media drives. And I'm not a huge YouTuber or anything, so it's not like I deserve to get press loans, but man, that's been one that's really hard for a lot of people, even others that like are far more deserving than myself, that have huge audiences. Even them, it's like pulling teeth to get Porsches, and you would think Porsche would be like rolling out the red carpet for some of these people, and instead it's like it's so hard for them to get these things. So I certainly don't expect them, but man, it would be nice because I just would like to be able to try them, especially even just like the regular stuff, would be fun to try. But, Porsche it always has that price premium, which makes it kind of tough. If I had, what is a Carrera T now? I don't even know, 130 grand. If I had 130 grand to spend on a fun car and I wanted a manual, I'd be in a Blackwing and I'd pocket the 30 grand difference. A Blackwing CT5V. That is arguably, in my opinion, one of the best manuals on the market anyway, like at any price. And it's just like a rip roaring good time, a totally different character from Carrera T. So I can appreciate if, Carrera T is more your style, completely understand. But, there's a lot of good options at that kind of a price point. And so that's kind of the only thing that gives me pause about any 911s for that matter. And if you're going to spend crazy money and you're not going to care about, horsepower, you're not going to care about, some of those other things. Like if you've got big money to spend, I just go GT3 because then you get a truly special engine. Or you can even go down if you want to go cheaper, go to something a little more special like a Carrera or a Cayman, GTS 4.0 or something like that. That's those things, by the way, Caymans like do not depreciate. It's kind of crazy, and then that's certainly not going to change now that production is fully done and stuff. But like that would probably be a better buy because you're going to lose some money on a Carrera T, I think, still possibly not a lot because they also depreciate very slowly. But I think if you want a good manual Porsche, if you do care about value, I would probably just go lightly used GTS 4.0 or even GT4 if you're going to go something a little more hardcore. But GTS 4.0, I think is kind of the sweet spot there. And it's, my buddy has one. I still have yet to review it. He's offered it to me multiple times and it just never worked out timing wise, but maybe this will be the year. I don't know, but like he loves that thing. He drives it like a regular car, really enjoys it. That's, I think, kind of the sweet spot in the lineup for sure. For that or previous lineup. Chad says car salesmen used to be respectable. I'm sure some of them still are. Live off reputation, send Christmas cards, old customers, etc. Yeah, that's the way it used to be. And it's so sad it's not like that anymore because it used to be like, yeah, you had a guy, you went to that guy, and it was a mutually beneficial thing of, they know they can count on you, you can count on them. You look out for each other, like in a way. They're still in business and you understand that, but like, I think actually that made customers more willing to pay more money because okay, look, he's got to feed his family. I got their Christmas card or whatever, like you said, I know they got a family, you have that personal connection. You're actually far more likely to pay more for the car. But like, but again, if you're not being taken advantage of, you have that trust, then okay, they're giving me a good price and I have that trust, and so I'm more willing to sign on the dotted line. They make their money they need to make. I feel like I still got a good deal. Everyone's happy, and you go off and you're friends. And then again, the next time it happens, it's not a headache. You don't have to find a new salesman. You don't have to find a new dealer. You go to the same guy. It makes it so much easier and streamlines everything. And yeah, I mean, I remember going to the Buick dealer with my grandfather back in the 90s, and he had a guy, and he went and he picked up his, brand new 1996 Buick Century, waltzed right in. It was the guy that he's worked with, for the past 20 years or whatever. And it was nice and simple and easy. I still remember the new car smell of that Buick showroom in 1996 there. And and even like my parents with their Subarus for a long time, they had a go-to Subaru salesman, and they bought, I don't know how many, three or four Subarus off the same guy, and you kept coming back, and again, knew that, hey, this person was going to take care of us, and you understand, hey, look, yeah, sure, like, we'll do 500 over invoice or whatever, make sure you get your buck, and then everyone's happy or whatever. Like, yeah, and that goes for a lot of sales positions. Instead, now it's just so cutthroat. I think the internet has also kind of facilitated that with, people being able to find cheaper pricing and stuff. So it's just about price, and there is no loyalty anymore. But there are still some people. I mean, like, B. Mitchell mentioned, he's got a dealer he's worked with for 50 years. And they do like take care of him. Like that dealer gave him the best trade-in offer on his F-150. There's perks to that. If you actually do, or if you are able to stay brand loyal, which is also harder too. I think that was easier back in the day. Oh, well, I've always had Buicks, I'll stick with Buicks or whatever. Nowadays, it's hard because these brands are all changing and, doing different things that might not allow you to stay brand loyal anymore. And so that makes it hard too. But so yes, in so many ways, but yeah, it's just one of those things where, like a lot of things, it was better back in the good old days, But yeah, I remember, yeah, all of my, all the people older than me and my family, and all the, just easy transactions. There was never any shouting matches at a dealership. There was never any sleazy stuff. It was all smooth. It was easy, and everyone was happy. Again, that's not always the case, but I think, again, if you put that, investment into those people, it worked out. And Texas Simon says, hi, Matt. I've been following you since you were a SuperX fan some years ago. I enjoy your vlogs. Well, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the long-time support. There's so many of you I know that have been watching, since those days. And it's been a long time. I mean, I changed the channel name in 2017. So next year will actually be 10 years of Matt Maran Motoring and the death of SuperX fans. So, yeah, it really blows my mind. But thank you so much for all these years of support. And, that's what keeps the lights on here, is everyone continuing to watch the videos. That's what allows me to keep doing this. So thank you so much for every view and every like, every comment. All that stuff does absolutely help. So thank you. And Vishal says, Delivered also pitches their videos as training, so we can do it ourselves without paying him for the service. He says that a lot in his live streams. That's good. Yeah, I think yeah, that's definitely a good way to learn how to do that. But clearly, if his business is growing, I don't know how many people actually do that. Again, and it's just down to the different, personality types. Some people trying to tackle that themselves versus others. I think, even if he says, this is training, if he's showing you, the stressful stuff, though, then it's more of an effective tool to sell his services than it is to give you confidence. If every video he posted was him calling a dealer and saying, hey, I'd like to get this car for this price, and they said, yeah, sure, done. And he said, okay, cool, bye. That'd be a horrible short or, TikTok or whatever. So again, not trying to play devil's advocate here, but like just trying to look at it from both sides. Like, he shows the drama. That drama drives you to the service, because, you don't want that drama unless you're somebody who thrives off drama, which I feel like most people these days need less drama in their lives. We've got plenty of it all around us in the world. Everyone desperately wants boring and chill, but no one's going to post boring and chill TikToks, So I feel like that's, but that's the nature of the social media beast that we're all feeding, myself included, but, you could say it's training, but then again, if everything you're showing is like, oh crap, I could never do what he's doing, then like, it's more so just another marketing tool. And that's what it's very effective marketing. Again, he's laughing all the way to the bank. So, and good for him. He is actually helping some people, and I'm, it's good. He's doing some good for sure. I just have some of those reservations. But anyway, Luke says, sorry I was off for a bit hanging with my parents before they went to bed. All good. Yeah, no, thanks so much for continuing to hang out here, Luke. But yeah, definitely make sure you enjoy the family, and yeah, it's nothing better than spending time with real people, and the people in your life for sure. And let me see. Chad, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, did Honda see Prius and think Prelude? Probably. Kind of seems to be very much that same styling trend for sure. And Chad, thank you for another super chat. Sorry I missed these earlier. He says, do you remember the Aston Martin smart competitor? Yes, the Aston Martin Signet. Yes, which was just a Toyota IQ that was rebadged. Fascinating little car. And then someone put I think a V8 in the back of one of them and made a crazy little death trap of a car that seems super awesome. But yeah, the Signet. I think there was actually, I saw something. I don't know if it was legit or not. I saw some kind of article or headline. I didn't actually read any articles, but some kind of headline about some Aston Martin customers are kind of interested in the idea of a new Signet. Because I think it's, if you don't want to drag your fancy Aston Martin into the city, I mean, they're great little things. Even it's funny, but like I have, the Fiat, and I love, that little thing for, tight parking spaces and all that. And like, my in-laws were just telling me here yesterday, they're like, we're starting to think maybe we need a little Fiat in our lives, because they're like, they like to go into the city and be parallel parking all the time, and all that. And it's just like, they like the idea of like having a small little car you can just run around in and like not worry about, and it's cheap, and it's just a fun, cheery little thing. And so we'll see. I don't know if they're gonna make the leap or not, but they're like that, especially combined with, they even said like the high gas prices. It's like, it'd be really nice to have a little something that costs $7 to charge up for a full charge. And just those types of things are again, even appealing to them. So we'll see what happens. But I think the idea of a city car, if you do a lot of that driving, is very appealing. And I think that's why Smart has stayed in business, and why Fiat 500e still sells really well in Europe, as do many of the other small things like that. But yeah, there's a lot of appeal in my opinion, but I'm biased. Anyway, and Chad, thank you for another super chat. It says customer service gets repeat customers. Mind blown, right? Yeah, I know, it's a dying art, I guess, unfortunately. But yeah, it's I don't like, I'm trying to like wrap my head around like where as a society we all lost our way with looking out for the other person and having them look out for us. Like, where did everything get so disloyal and cutthroat? I'm trying to think of like a point in time when it was like, okay, screw everybody except myself. Like, when did that become the thing? I don't know. I mean, salesmen have always been, slimy in many cases. So like, I guess that's probably a bad example of a profession where repeat customers are deserved, because a lot of people never had that loyalty. But there was certainly a lot of that, where you had a stacked Rolodex of your loyal customers and all that. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I won't get too deep here, but let me see. We're almost out of time too, so we'll see. Get to the rest of the questions here as best we can, and then we'll head on out here. So, and man, I'm sorry, I've fallen behind a little bit here, I guess, with all my ranting. So I apologize, everyone. But so let me see. RJ says he started watching alongside that dude in blue back in 2014. That's awesome. And Patricia, thank you so much. Says best YouTuber ever. I really appreciate it, Patricia. I hope you're doing well, and thanks for stopping by too. And let me see. Texas Simon says, I think that the car culture has changed drastically. Young people no longer enjoy the pleasure of driving. They prefer the FSD over a 6-speed transmission. What do you think? I think there is certainly some of that. I think that is absolutely the case in a lot of the younger generation, but I have also been seeing that there is a resurgence of Gen Zers and those younger generations that are excited about the old ways, and like manual transmissions are starting to come back in vogue. And it's kind of I've even read one thing. I think it was actually CarMax that was reporting that Gen Z is actually driving the resurgence in at least used manual purchases. And I mean, that kind of makes sense. But also, like, parents are very excited about this. So they are more willing to pay or help pay for manual transmission cars for first time drivers and their kids, because they know that if you have to be focused on what gear you're in and shifting, that gives you less opportunities to be on your phone and, be checked out. So, like, most parents are like welcoming it with open arms, because they're like, sure, maybe they like to speed, or maybe, they are going to be a little bit of a riskier driver as far as that goes. But like, if they are an engaged driver, an interested driver that cares, that's, focused on the act of driving, you're more likely to have a better result there, I think, than someone who is just staring at their phone the entire time they're driving, even if they're in the safest car imaginable and they're always doing the speed limit. Like, they're just not paying attention. That's far more dangerous, in my opinion, than, a young kid flying around but paying attention and trying to actually do well. Like, I still think you should follow laws and stuff, but like, I think that's, a just a good thing that I think a lot of parents are encouraging. Like, yes, we're all about manual transmissions, and so they're seeing a resurgence there. The other thing is, I've been seeing a lot of stuff, especially in the past year or so, about how younger generations are really burned out with technology. They grew up in the, with having a smartphone filming them from the day they were born, from, just being constantly in their faces, their parents always being, staring at their phones and being distracted and not getting the attention that they wanted, because everyone's absorbed into their devices. And that, as a result, the rebellion, or the rebellious, or just countercultural, I guess, kind of thing for them that they're doing now is like, they're interested in the 80s and the 90s and even the early 2000s. They want a corded phone, with an actual landline. And that's kind of something that's kind of making a resurgence, actually. Like, there's people that are either, whether they're buying actual landline phones or they're buying phones that are doing similar things, where it's just like a landline, or it's just a real phone that doesn't have all the other connectivity and stuff. That's becoming more popular. And these other little things of like people that, are super into CDs now. CDs are making a comeback. DVDs are making a comeback. All these things, people are burned out with, subscribing to Netflix and all this other crap, and they're going back to DVDs. Like, I mean, I'm one of them, if you see all the Blu-rays and stuff behind me. But like, I think physical media is making a comeback. And I think that that's all kind of intertwined with enthusiast vehicles. And so, yes, I think there's still a large amount of those people who, they don't care. They're happy to just stare at their phones with FSD on or whatever, and, not pay attention. And that's probably the majority still. But I think there's a growing movement of these young people that are just like, I'm tired of this. I see how this has ruined my parents. I see how this has, radicalized my friends or whatever. And they're disconnecting, from this stuff, and pushing back on it. And I think that is absolutely a very wise and smart move. I mean, I would do it myself. Honestly, if my job wasn't posting online, I would probably go completely dark. I would maybe keep stuff in limited instances just to like keep tabs on, some people I'm interested in keeping tabs on, but like, I would basically just completely be off social media if I didn't have to do it for my job. I mean, it has perks, and there's certainly good things about social media. But I'm one of them. I'm burned out. And I think a lot of people, even in my generation, I'm a millennial, are burned out by this stuff and are seeking real connections with real people, and are seeking, like even the bar scene and these things, kinds of things are starting to come back. People be like, hey, I want to like actually interact with someone and get out of my house, like, I mean, I think there's a lot of that. So I think that all goes back to the car thing as well. So I don't think that all hope is lost. I know that for a while that was kind of the trend, and that was the narrative, but I don't think we should count out the younger generations just yet. I think there is a lot of, I mean, you look at like even the racing games. I think, the fact that like Forza Horizon 6 has massive buzz, ahead of its launch, the amount of people that play, all these car games, I think it's actually a larger amount than we probably realize. And I think those people, like, they care about cars. The fact that they're playing, like, if young people didn't care about cars, there'd be no car video games, but there are, and they sell in good numbers, and are huge hits, some of the biggest hits on some of these consoles. So that tells me like there is still hope for the younger generations. There's still hope for this hobby. And the people still do enjoy cars. They enjoy what cars are about, the freedom that they bring, the independence that they bring. I think that still is like a core, I'd say almost primal trait that I don't think is going to completely go away. And I think it actually could very much come back in vogue, even more than it already is. But Chad says he works with a lot of younger people and they have a passion for the cars and the mods too. That's just great to hear. And Kraken says, just got my buddy to subscribe. I appreciate that. Thanks so much for the subscription there and for spreading the word here. That also does help. Absolutely. If there's any of you who, have anyone who's looking, to buy a car, they're interested in cars, always appreciate a recommendation. And I also, speaking of the car buying service, I'll give my shameless plug. I do also do car advice calls. I won't, call the dealer for you, but like I absolutely can look at pricing and tell you if this is good pricing or bad pricing. I do all those things on my website there at mattmaranmotoring.com. But mostly it's just, if you need help figuring out what car you want, I've driven 900 plus cars at this point. I can help, anyone who's shopping for that as well. And do that for far less, I will say. You can do a 15-minute call with me for, I think it's $35. And then even like the 45-minute long deep dive, even that's, like $125 or something like that. So far cheaper. Again, it doesn't get the car deal done for you, but it can at least hopefully maybe save you a little bit of money and a little bit of time and stress. I can do some of that, research and stuff for you. So anyway, but let me see here. Vishal says at this rate, more and more people would keep their current older cars going, but then parts prices can go up too. Yeah. But I mean, and that's what we saw in 2008 too. I mean, like Advanced Auto Parts and all those companies, their stocks went crazy because a ton of that stuff became a lot more popular and people just keeping their old cars on the road. And we already see this in general. The average age of a vehicle continues to climb. It was 12.3 years like a year or two ago. Now it's 12.6 years is the average age of a car on the road right now. And that just keeps climbing as cars get more reliable and also they get more expensive and you can't afford to be hopping into something new every couple of years. So yeah, there's absolutely, I think some of that. And I think that's, again, not financial advice, but like, that wouldn't be a bad stock probably to be in as those car part companies. I mean, some of them, like the ones, the one spark plug, Auto Light or whatever, it just went just went bankrupt or whatever. But like, the more stable like parts companies, I think those could probably get a nice little boost here as times get harder. But let me see. Texas Simon says saving environment is important, but EV is not really the best solution. Do you know how much we are polluting the earth to make those batteries? Well, okay, I won't go into all that. There's really good videos. My buddy Engineering Explained did a bunch of really good videos that like looked at the studies and ran the math on the trade-offs, and he did this video. It was probably 7 or 8 years ago at this point. So it's gotten even better since then. The science and the math shows that it is still far less pollution than a gas vehicle over its lifespan. With the way it's structured, EVs, bunch of pollution at the beginning to build the battery, build the car, like building anything. And then it basically goes to zero. Obviously you still have the offsite emissions of, the power, but that's far more efficient to get that power compared to trucking in gasoline and burning it for 12.6 years or whatever. So anyway, the science is pretty clear to me that absolutely EVs are much better. I don't drive an EV to save the planet or anything. I think it's a good step, and that's a nice byproduct, but like, that's not why we have the EVs that we have. It's just that it saves money, it saves frustration, it saves time. And it's just, the right choice for us, and also just far better driving dynamics and better safety against all these gigantic SUVs and trucks out there on the road these days. So there's a lot of other perks, but yeah, no, the side, I mean, yeah, Engineering Explained for anyone, if you want, there's a ton of debunking videos about, what is more efficient, what is, better for the planet, all that kind of stuff. If you actually care about that stuff, he's got so many good videos on that stuff. So definitely check out his stuff. He's very smart. And yeah, he does some really good videos on that from an actual engineer's perspective with sources cited, like real stuff, not just some clickbait BS that's not supported. It's real good stuff. So definitely recommend checking that out for anyone who would like more information on that stuff. And Chad says you can recycle the battery. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And yeah, there's a lot of that you can keep going, keep recycling, all that. You can turn those batteries after they're done in cars. You can turn them into battery backups elsewhere, where you don't need to have the maximum amount of output for that space, those kinds of things. But Texas Simon says, could it be because the Prius is very ugly looking? I mean, styling is always subjective. There's a lot of ugly cars that sell really well, like most Subarus. So I don't think the looks are doing it or hurting the Prius, really, in my opinion. Michelle says, I notice more people cross-shopping Camry and Civic Hybrid nowadays. Puts into perspective how expensive the Civic is and how much the value the Camry is. Absolutely. Totally agree. And Texas Simon says, with the rapid advancement in battery technology, do you see the EV gets obsolete faster than the gas cars? Oh, absolutely. I mean, anything that advances quickly, it's obsolete faster. That's one of the costs of progress, and whenever you have that faster progress, that's kind of the byproduct of that. So that's why I only recommend leasing EVs. If you buy them, it's going to depreciate like a rock, and it's not a good investment. Even more so than cars are usually bad investments, but like extra bad with an EV. I never recommend anyone purchase an EV unless you're getting a gigantic discount and you're basically getting out ahead of the depreciation quickly. But even then, it's still a hard math equation to really justify, in my opinion. Just lease them and then dump them for the next thing that's going to have the better efficiency, the better tech. That's kind of the best way to go about it, in my opinion, or buy used. And this is why I think a ton of people figure this out and they're buying the EVs used instead of new. And that's also better, as far as environmental stuff goes as well, because the car's already built. And, whether you buy it or someone else buys it makes no difference versus fueling the new car demand where you are supporting that manufacturing. But yeah. And Texas Simon also says minivans are more useful for those with families, but people tend to buy the SUV for the macho look. Absolutely. Yeah, that's still something people can't bring themselves to buy any minivans. And Chad says, anything positive to say about the Model S since it's stopping production? It was groundbreaking from a flawed CEO. Oh, I mean, Model S was a fantastic car, and it still is. It's held up really well. It's just, it's a casualty of, just a poorly run company right now. And, it's a shame, but Model S, it was, I mean, we have the entire EV industry to thank for, the Model S is what put it on the map and made it cool. EVs were always dorky cars before that. The first one that was fast and cool was technically the Tesla Roadster, but Model S was what brought it into the mainstream and completely changed the perception, completely changed the appeal, and what an EV could be. And that's I think Model S is a historic car, and it will absolutely go down in history, with that credit, and it deserves it. Again, despite all the other stuff, it's a very important car. And I reviewed a Model S P100D back in 2019, early 2020. And I was very impressed with it. That was before, Elon started getting crazy, in my opinion. But it was, it's a great car. It's super smooth, super comfortable. It's still, and, if you don't have any issues with Elon or supporting that stuff, Model S is a great used value. As is any Tesla, because they also depreciate, horribly, even more so, thanks to Elon. And anytime he opens his mouth, their cars depreciate more. But I think if you don't care about that stuff, it's just a good buy, from a value standpoint for sure. And let me see, Lance Swap, thanks so much for stopping by and for the very generous super chat there. He says, good evening. Sorry I'm late. Just got back from a friend's house. Oh, and GR Corolla. Well, cheers. You're the first person to say it after 2 hours and 12 minutes. So congrats, Lance Swap. You got it in there. You were the first one tonight still. And thanks for stopping by. We have a running joke around here for anyone who's newer that every time GR Corolla is mentioned, we take a drink because I inevitably bring it up basically every live stream. And if I don't, then the good folks like Lancelot there make sure to bring it up for me. And all right, so yeah, we are pretty over time, so I'll try and wrap it up here. Let me see. Vishal says, how do you find Toyota seats comfortable? I feel like to me they're uncomfortable, not good thigh support, firm, and headrests stick out too far forward to me. So I've never had an issue with the headrest. I don't think the seats are a little bit on the firmer side, and some of them. Camry is one of the firmer ones. But like to me, it's not. I don't know. Like after a week of driving, it doesn't bother me. And I mean, you guys know if something bothers me, like I'll tell you, and I won't mince words about it. But like it's never been something usually that I'm like, this is really like driving me crazy or anything. And actually, right now I have a RAV4 Limited for the week. And that's like nice, comfy seats. They're not the plushest, like our Lyric has far softer seats. And I do like comfy, like sofa kind of seats, especially in something that's not sporty. So yeah, it's not the best, but to me, it's not a deal breaker. Some people, I guess it's just the way some seats hit differently with different people. Like I hear a lot of complaints about Mazda's seats, but like Mazda seats have always been fine for me. Yeah, some people complain about the Toyota seats. I'm trying to think of other ones that people complain about. I feel like there's one or two others, but those are the two. I think the top two, Toyota and Mazda, both people are like always complaining about their seats. Not always, but I see more complaints with those two brands than others. And I've never had issues with either of them. I do remember Camry seats being firm, but it wasn't a bad thing after a week to me. And also, it's like mattresses. Some people like a firm mattress, other people don't. So there's gonna be some of that perception too that's different. And so some people like need a firm seat for their back or whatever, if it actually helps them. Other people, yeah, they want to sink into memory foam or something that is super soft. So it just depends. But yeah, to me, it's never been too bad. And clearly, again, it doesn't seem to be hurting sales because they sell so many Toyotas. That if it was a problem, I think they wouldn't do as well as they do. But yeah, no, it's a valid point though. That some other people certainly have too. And let me see. So Texas says, I hope Toyota brings back their V6 engine. We'll see. I mean, yeah, they still have it in the TX plug-in hybrid. We'll see if they do, bring it back in more stuff. Let me see. Byerly says, I bought a 25 Outback Wilderness last year and love it, but should I have waited and gotten the Trail Seeker? I mean, that entirely comes down to your situation. There's a lot to get into there. As far as what your charging situation will be like, what your driving situation is like, what you like about the Outback Wilderness, what you don't like about the Outback Wilderness, and whether those things would be improved or worsened by a Trail Seeker. Personally, yes, I would rather have a Trail Seeker over an Outback Wilderness. I don't love Subaru powertrains anymore, unless you're talking about the WRX or the BRZ. But the regular Subaru powertrains are some of the least impressive ones in the segment. The CVTs are, average at best, and that's probably being generous, honestly. I mean, they're fine, but I think most others do CVTs better these days. And yeah, again, they're very popular. People buy them and enjoy them, and you can get used to anything. So, I don't think anything is, a deal breaker most of the time, but like Trail Seeker's a lot more power. If it's anything, it's identical to the BZ Woodland that I just drove and loved. If you haven't seen that video, definitely check out my BZ Woodland. It's so much fun. And it's, ripping off sub 4 seconds or to 60 times. It's just so cool. So anyway, yeah, I'd rather have a Trail Seeker if it makes sense to, trade into one or something, especially if you're feeling the heat of the high gas prices. This is the time to do it. I know at least Toyota with the BZ Woodland, they're offering $6,500 incentive immediately off of one of those. And I think Subaru, I know the Solterra, they're doing 0% financing for 75 months. It's like free money, so if there's something like that, and there's a compelling deal to be had there, I would say, yeah, it might not be a terrible time to make that swap or whatever. But, also hindsight's always 2020. Don't beat yourself up for not waiting, because you never know what's coming next and how they're going to be pricing these new things, or, there's a whole bunch of unknowns. You make the best choice you can in the moment. you made the right choice for you last year. And if you love it, then there should be no reason to, look for greener pastures. And if you love it, enjoy it, keep driving it, keep enjoying it. And, don't feel any FOMO for, there's always something new around the corner. You can't stop that. So there's just, you gotta just love the one you're with, and enjoy that. And let me see. Chad says with EV hot rod tech, you could give Meatball a rear motor and turn that thing into a beast. It would be fun. Yeah, it's a shame that there's not more of that EV hot rodding kind of going on. I'm guessing it's just too computerized to like have everything play nicely with each other. It would just be too hard, but that would be fun. To just, if I didn't give a crap at all after the lease period was over and I just bought it out, I could just turn it into some little insane thing. That could be fun. Yeah, to even just take another one of those motors and throw it in the back. I don't even know if that would fit. I don't know what the packaging is like under that thing. But yeah, that could be. I like your thinking, Chad. You get me excited now because now I'm just kind of like going down that path and thinking that could be a fun little monster of a car. Because I mean, it's not a lot of power. I think it's like 130 horsepower or whatever, or 113, but the torque's like 162 pound-feet. So like 162 pound-feet of torque, you double that. You're looking at 320 odd pound-feet of torque and something that weighs as much as a Civic and is that small. That's a good time. Yeah, that could be fun. And Vishal says he watched the road trip video. I'm definitely not a planner like that. I'm very much I get in the car and go, especially with my car being able to do over 600 miles on a tank on the highway. Yeah, and I mean, and that's why this is why it's great to have options for everyone, and that's why companies like Toyota are doing so well with that, because it is very much a personality thing. Like if you are just not a planner, I mean, I know people that just are not planners, and like no matter how much you ask them to plan something or to think ahead, it's really hard. And I have my own things where I can't do certain things too. It's just, not my personality. So, that's why it's great to have options. And I think, that's why it's great that this tech is advancing so fast because, in a couple of years, you'll be able to do 600 miles on a single charge. And, the infrastructure will continue to grow and, it'll be basically, no different to what you're doing right now, and I think that's why infrastructure is kind of irrelevant because the battery tech's evolving so fast that you're not going to need to be fast charging very much in the future anyway. So it's going to be, that problem will solve itself even for the non-planners, but for right now, absolutely. Yeah, you got to have that personality, I think, if you want the best results. You can wing it, and lots of people do, but those are often the people that you see crying on the side of the road if they ran out of charge or they showed up at a charger and it was broken because they did zero research on that charger beforehand. And then they wonder, why things are the way they are. And they're shouting at the sky and everything else. And it's just like, it's a shame that it's not 100% reliable and it's not foolproof yet, but it's just one of those, again, early adopter things. Like any other beta tester, you got to be, more in touch than the average consumer. You got to be able to put up with more temperamental stuff. You got to be able to put up with more, just putting thought into the thing that you're trying to do, so it's just, kind of that same kind of beta tester mentality, I'd say. And Texas Simon says, I'm interested to hear how Subaru implements their legendary symmetrical all-wheel drive in the X mode on the EVs. Yeah, so it's actually a lot more precise than their old all-wheel drive system because that was just, a pretty dim-witted system. I mean, it's, a 50-50 split. It's good, but it's not hyper accurate. And that's the cool thing with electric motors is you can be hyper accurate with your power delivery and where you deliver it and when you deliver it, and you can react far quicker to wheel spin as a result of that. Instead of waiting for something to lock up, you can instantly just cut it with the electric. And then you can also ramp it up and you have full torque immediately when you need that. And so that's why it's really good. And this is like before Jeep decided to get scared away from electrification, or plug-in hybrid electrification, I should say. The regular 4xe, that was the big perk of that, was that you could have this electric mode and it was giving you all this low-end torque that you couldn't get from the Pentastar or even from the Turbo 4 in the regular Wranglers or even the V8 for that matter. You had just far more of an advantage there with that power delivery. And the same thing goes, whether you're off-roading in like a Rivian or any of these other things where it's like it has a nice advantage there as far as that power delivery goes. And oh, Nicholas, thank you. He says Lobo is wolf. I knew that. I don't know why I couldn't remember that, but thank you. Thank you for the correction there on that. And MG, I see is chiming in with that as well. And MS 705 is signing off here. And yeah, I'll be signing off here in a minute too. And yeah, I will be doing one on Wednesday to answer your question there, Mr. 705. So yeah, I'll be back on Wednesday, back to the regularly scheduled programming here. And Texas Simon says he respects Porsche for resisting electrification with the 911. Yeah, but GTS is absolutely very much electrified and very impressive. You know, again, not for everyone, and that's good that they have, you know, the other options for those who don't want that. But the hybrid and the GTS is pretty cool tech. It seems. Never driven it again, but seems impressive. And let me see. I'm not paying $42,000 for a Prelude, says the Aston Martin Signet, the Toyota IQ, and a fancy suit. Yeah, such a cool car. And let me see. And Texas Simon says, back in the day when I had the $500 discount on Subaru, I passed them on to several people. That's awesome. You're spreading the savings there. And let me see. Chad says, don't be desperate. Know the facts. Be willing to walk away. Where's my $1,000? Yeah, that's a good way to sum it up. I don't disagree. And Jordan says, I think car of the week should include a mod of the week too. I want to submit 2 pics of our battery change of the Fusion after the BS I had to deal with at Advanced Auto here in Milton, Florida. Yeah, I mean, you know, no one really sends me any of the stuff because I think, you know, everyone who was interested in sharing their car of the week already did that for the most part. So happy to do, a weekly post of, you know, if you guys do a mod or if you just want to share, you know, what's new with your car or something. I think that'd be really cool to highlight just, you know, what you guys are driving. And even if, again, it's been, you know, a year or two since I last, you know, did it as member car of the week or whatever, like, you know, people often forget and they'd probably like to see, you know, more of that stuff too. So yeah, always feel free. Any of you that are, you know, members there. Yeah, I do the member car of the week, you know, whenever I have someone's car to share there. And I do a little community post here on the channel. So anyone who's a member, definitely feel free. There's all the, you know, contact info in the description of every video here. Want to send me a picture and a little blurb about, you know, what you'd like to say about your car. Always happy to share that there, you know, for the member car of the week. And let me see. It's one of the perks of being a member. But yeah, Michelle says, my parents are really liking the Sportage Hybrid, by the way. They're averaging 38 to 40 MPG in the city. That's awesome. The TX isn't moving as much now with premium gas being $5 a gallon. Yeah, I can certainly understand that. So I'm glad they got the hybrid, though. That's great. And Jordan says, thanks for the live. Thank you all for showing up. I really appreciate it. And Chad says, I'm old and worked at Sears years ago. There were certain salespeople that had loyalty. The others got leftovers. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's cool. You worked at Sears. Yeah, lots of good memories in Sears. That's for sure. Yeah, Chad says he realized we're in overtime. All good. He says, thank you so much for doing these lives. Thanks, Chad, for keeping it fun and educational. Absolutely. Always so many great conversations here. And Must Be Kyle says, so like, where's when Scion coming back? I know it'd be cool to see Scion come back. I just think there's not really much of a position for them anymore because Toyota has gotten more exciting with all the GR stuff and everything. But yeah, you know, never know. Maybe someday. I think Scion could be a fun, like, all electric brand if you're trying to like segment that stuff. I think that could be a kind of a cool way to you know, bring Scion back possibly. But again, I think that Toyota's doing it well enough as it is right now. But Chad says Scion could be their Lobo. That could be fun. Yeah, like a Tundra Scion or something. Make it like a trim instead of an actual brand. That'd be interesting. And let me see. B. Mitchell says a drink again. Michelle says, I asked about the seat because the 21 Highlander we had, I never was able to get comfortable in them the entire 4 years we had it. The thigh support wasn't good. The headrests were far too forward. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it might also be the way the seat is positioned. Everyone positions their seat differently. Like for me, with my seat, I very much have like a not race car seating position, but like I always go like, it's probably also because I came up in the 2000s when everyone was like laid back way far, but like I very much have a very reclined seat. And that also, but if you look at like race cars like that, no one's driving like this, like everyone's, you know, down low and like this, you know, so that's usually how I drive. So as a result, with the seat at that angle, my the top of my back is almost never up against the seat. I'm always, kind of, my shoulders aren't really even coming in contact oftentimes with the seat back. So for me, like a headrest that really comes in, would probably not be an issue as much. But yeah, and headrests are very important too, because you want to make sure that it does fit your head and it's more natural with, because if you're ever rear-ended, like that's going to screw up your neck if, your headrest isn't correctly positioned. So you want to make sure that that's in a good spot. So like, for example, in your case, Vishal, if it was coming in on your head, then my recommendation would actually be to raise the headrest so that the part that's coming in, which I'm assuming is at the top, doesn't contact. And as long as you have, because your head's always supposed to be under the top of the headrest. So, if you were seeing that the top was coming in, and hitting your head, bring that headrest up so that it's clearing, and then you have a flat headrest, and then, you'll have better, because it's still going to support your head. And that's kind of, I'd say the way that you'd probably want to go about that to fix that part of the problem. And general advice for anyone, I guess. But yeah, it's strange. Yeah, Highlander sells super well. So I guess, yeah, just differences in how everyone sits and stuff. But let me see. Yeah, Chad also says we watched some of the older vids, and I love seeing the kid and you living the dream. Yeah, and that was really fun. I also, by the way, if you ever go on the channel homepage, some of you probably already know this, but I have a playlist now on the homepage of classic Subaru fan performance car reviews. And so you go back and it's, all the highlights, the fun reactions and stuff, from the Subaru fan days. So if you're ever looking for a nostalgia trip, you can go click on that playlist and enjoy, whatever car suits your fancy, but it's kind of a fun thing. I'm going to try and lean into the nostalgia a little bit, because I think I have a lot of that to offer. And that was, I think, when the channel was the strongest, admittedly. And so, I think that that's something I'd like to try and capitalize on more in the future. And I see some people, every once in a while that stumble on, like someone just a week or so ago saw my old CTSV review of the 2016 one, whenever that first came out. And they're like, this is still the best reaction ever on the internet, or something like that. They commented, they like loved that. They came back, all these years later. And a lot of those videos are mostly dormant. People don't watch them that often, but when they do, it's kind of a fun little trip back in time a little bit to a simpler time, and a time when I was also more easily impressed with horsepower than I am now, with how spoiled I am. But all right, so yeah, thank you all. I see Chad says thanks. He's been watching since the Subaru fan days as well, so thank you so much for that. Yeah, it means a lot. And Lance West says he thinks he found the channel through Redline Reviews. I've been watching your videos over 10 years. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, Sophian's been a great friend all these years, and yeah, I'm very thankful for the little collabs we've done all these off and on, in the past as well. And Michelle says, I understood it from a safety perspective. I don't know. I tried adjusting it up and everything. Never got comfortable in those seats. Crazy. In other seat brands, the headrests aren't an issue for me. That's interesting. I know some people even also spin the headrest around the other way and do that, which isn't probably the best idea. But, yeah, again, I know you don't have it anymore, so it's a moot point. But yeah, I'm always just like a problem solver, so I'm trying to like fix things all the time, which is probably not a great trade all the time. But anyway, yeah, headrests though, there have been a few headrests. I can't remember which one it was. There was one or two headrests in the past couple of years where it didn't fit me great either, and it was like kind of annoying. But I can't remember what cars they were. But I encounter that from time to time too, so it's not just you. Chad signing us off here with one last super chat here. He says, cool shows to watch since you're in the movie business. So I don't watch much TV anyway. I just don't have time to watch anything to keep up with any of that stuff. I enjoy watching SNL. That's the only thing I try and keep up with anymore. And even that, sometimes we're weeks behind on that. But aside from that, I mean, whenever we have the time, we've been watching St. Denis Medical. That's a fun one to watch. And I think there's one or two others. I'll try and catch Family Guy or South Park. Like those kinds of shows are fun every once in a while. But that's pretty much about it. Yeah, I just don't have a lot of time to watch TV. There's a lot of older TV shows I could recommend and stuff, but as far as stuff that's on right now, I'm probably pretty out of the loop on a lot of it. So yeah, but anyway, thank you all so much again, and right at the 2.5 hour mark here. And yeah, thank you all so much for hanging out here. Have a great week. Enjoy the first full week of May here. Happy Cinco de Mayo to all of you that enjoy some good Mexican food here. There'll be some some good stuff here on Tuesday. And anyway, thank you all so much for hanging out in the live. Have a great week, and I'll see most of you that can make it here on Wednesday for the next live. But take care, everyone.